Get
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of The Deepest Law. We are reviewing Adam Curtis for something like the 80th time. Welcome, all. How are you doing this week? Simon Roberts.
Comrade General Secretary of the Communist Party, AA, Chairman of the Presidium of the Supreme Soviet Panama, Chairman of the Committee for State Security, Head of KGB, Comrade Horace. This is a great day for the people's deepest law. Long live the party. Liquidate all deviationists and wreckers. Welcome.
Oh, yes, we finally made it, haven't we, to the trauma zone. We finally made it to the trauma zone. Wow.
So this one we can sort of talk over without always having to pause, right?
Well, my thought is that we can just have a chat while it plays.
Okay.
And you know, the four of us shouldn't struggle for things to talk about. We'll try to keep it focused on what the hell's going on. But I remember this is the first Curtis that I failed to watch this when it actually came on the BBC. I tapped out. I was like, I can't. There's no narration. There's no through line. I can't follow this. You know. So yeah, since this started, this has always been the challenge that we foresaw, wasn't it, Simon?
It is. I mean, I would say this is obviously very unlike, in many ways, other series, because he's withdrawing the supports of like the voiceover, the famous voiceover and the eclectic music mix, and he's kind of letting his own structure collapse. And that's because what he's doing is he's talking about the collapse of a system. And I'd go further to say that, you know, like with Shakespeare, you know, he writes about ancient Rome or Illyria or Verona, but he's always talking about London, and he's always talking about Britain or England. And that's kind of our mode in our country of subversion and delight is to think about how to get around problems by talking about something else. And that's what I think he's doing.
How are our other two panelists here? Hat, how you doing, sir?
Good afternoon. It's good to be back for more Curtis, and yes, I'm doing very well. Greetings to the party and to the General Secretary from Communist North London. Did we have you done any reviews as to certain scenes in this documentary? Make sure we don't get booted off the platform.
No,
there's nothing. I don't think there's anything particularly.
I downloaded it from YouTube, so
right. It may have been already changed for copyright anyway. A lot of the YouTube copies have little minutes or seconds snipped out here and there, so should probably be okay. And there's actually, I would say, there's actually a lot more to it once I started looking into it. There is actually interesting stuff in there that's going to come out. So yeah, we'll come across.
I've not watched Trauma Zone at all. I haven't watched most of Can't Get Your Own Head, but I'm looking forward to maybe covering this one in less than 6 months. I mean, maybe. I mean, there's a chance anyway.
I mean, if we play it in real time, we could get it done in 6 episodes, couldn't we? 7 episodes. Sure. But I mean, we'll see. We will see. That's a big ask for this panel.
How hard do we have to resist the urge to say pause? You know, whenever we want to interject, it's going to be difficult.
I wanted to. One of your takes in the last week, AA, I wanted to back. You are, over the last couple of weeks, I suppose, you are perfectly within, well, more than within your rights. You are right to sideline and marginalise first-person shooter fans and games. That they're just, I mean, it is gaming. I don't deny that they're gamers, but it is a lower form of gaming than others. It's just not that interesting or deep, or it's just who's got the quickest reactions and so on. So, yeah, it's just like that. Doom was not that big a deal. I know it got a lot of people into playing games or whatever, like, you know, but it's just not that great. It's just running around shooting stuff.
Oh, I'm glad for that. I've been getting the Game of the Year series. What started off as a bit of fun is starting to be a little bit more stressful now because I've just finished the selections for 1998, and it was almost impossible. There were legitimately about 10 or 15 games that could be the Game of the Year for 1998. It's a very strong, high quality year. And 97 was pretty strong as well. They haven't aired yet, but things are getting more difficult. But yes, I hear you, Horus, on the AS. I'm also unpopular for picking football. Sensible World of Soccer and Championship Manager. Well, look, if you were around at the time and you're into football, you played Sensi and you played Champo, right? Whereas I feel that there's a sports ball gamer divide rearing its head as well. So,
but also, Sensible World of Soccer. One time I went around my mate's house and he goes, "Do you want to play Sensible World?" And I'm like, "I've never played that before. I'll give it a try." And it was like 7 p.m. or something. Next thing you know, it's like 4 a.m. I haven't even got up to go for a wee or anything. It was like, but you chose Championship Manager as your Game of the Year for 97, right? But obviously, 96, sorry. But Champ Manager 97, 98, which would have been the next one, was also a classic game. That was a brilliant version.
This is the issue, I guess. So I'm going to have to limit my Champo pick. There's a guy in the chat saying it's actually a very normie list. I beg your pardon. I spent about 20 minutes talking about Wizardry 7 and fucking Ultima 7. Some of my picks are so obscure that none of your favorite YouTuber gaming buddies will have heard of those. So
Soviet ones.
I range from uber obscure to uber normie, and that's what I want to kind of do on the list. Is so I would reject the claim that it's an uber normie list. But I'm still giving dues where it's due, where I can, but also refusing to pick Doom and Quake as well. So but this tendency is going to intensify going forward because there are a couple of massive years coming up, and it's going to upset a lot of people. But we will see. Do you even play games? I feel like I've never heard you talk about video games. So.
I was never into kind of sort of hardcore RPG type stuff. I was always into strategy games. It was always Total War, Civilization, that kind of thing. Don't do it much. Don't do it these days as much as I did when I was a kid.
Great games, though. Great games.
Yeah, very good, very good. But it always needed to have a bit of history LARP in them to be fun for me. I mean, I grew up with, I grew up with a Nintendo Wii, so AA probably considers that horrifically beyond the pale sort of Zoomer experience to start with the Wii. I don't know. Yeah.
The Wii is the girls' machine, yeah.
Well, in my mind, the Wii was for old people's homes and things like that. I mean, I had one, and it's the only system in my entire life that my mother has actually played a game. She played Wii Sports. She'd actually get up and do the golf and stuff like that. So that made a difference. But in my mind, I've already caught stick for saying that. In my mind, it's not a gaming system, but I think people will know what I mean about that. It was more.
You're right.
Yeah,
it wasn't a gamer system. It was a gimmick.
I think there's clearly a difference in the.
No, go on.
Well, there's clearly a difference in the usage of these old, basically sort of nerd machines versus the Wii, which, as you say, is clearly meant to be get mum and dad on to have a go on Wii tennis.
Type
thing. Yeah.
I mean, it's not to say it did have good games, but. You know what I mean? It wasn't a game.
It's the equivalent of putting those plastic rails on your bath when you get old, isn't it? Really,
something like this.
Yeah.
It was men who were into gaming, then got married, and obviously weren't allowed to play games anymore. Mentioned at some point that they missed gaming, and then their wife said, "Well, we can play the Wii in the living room on the TV, like you and me can,
with the kids,
right? With the kids, or have friends around, have other couples round, and play the Wii for a night." But that's not gaming. That's shit. That's
Yeah. I'm trying to think of ways to include Simon in this.
I played Doom.
Do you remember Frogger, Simon? Do you remember Frogger?
Bowling cup.
My friends had the little sort of, little handheld console things, like the little brown Nintendo ones at school in the 80s. And then I played Doom in the university house in the early 90s, 93. And of course, you eventually get all the cheat codes and you just end up using the BFG 9000 to wipe everything out and get to the end. So I played on an easy mode.
It's good that you remember the cheat code. Not that there was a cheat code, but you remember what it was.
There was some sort of thing of cheating because I remember using it, so I didn't have to get killed all the time.
Do you remember the spinning top? We had those.
No.
Or like the little wooden spinning top, or
you mean like actual old toys?
like an actual old toy,
Yeah,
a little
yeah.
old wooden spinning.
No,
top.
we just had old clothes pegs to amuse ourselves
or
in those days.
or a kite, maybe a kite.
We'd fly them from our outside toilet. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, as we ate spam. Yeah, I had a friend I played on the Wii with. She was in the West German youth ping pong team, and she would never play computer games. But when they got a Wii in their house, we played that, and she still was very good. And from the pre-unification Germany. So there you go.
You're okay. Your German youth girlfriend.
Friend. Oh no,
friend,
she was married.
Not girlfriend.
She was married. She was a friend, but she had been on. It's quite strange to think that someone you knew was in the old West Germany and actually part of its institutions in a way.
Now, before we get going, chaps, has anybody else been enjoying the rise of esoteric Starmerism? Because his defiance over the past couple of days has led to the rise of quite a lot of Starmbot edits. And, I've liked a couple of these on Twitter, or I've kind of watched a few of them. And there's this whole gaggle of people now just constantly making edits of base Starmer facing down all his enemies, crushing all his enemies and declaring the 1,000-year Starmer and so on. It is kind of based in a way, like Wes Streeter went to see him this morning. The meeting lasted for exactly 16 minutes, and basically he told him to go and do one. I kind of dig the the kind of Stalin energy coming from the Starmbot at the moment.
Yeah,
Stalin wasn't I know what you mean, but Starmer is wooden in a way that Stalin probably wasn't. Right? Stalin was known for flying into a rage sometimes, or obviously having people killed and or being a good laugh to have a drink with and stuff. But Starmer is a personality void, as everyone says. But his way of just acting like there's no problem is funny. That is objectively funny, I think.
But that's the interesting play of power. That from his point of view, there is no problem. What can they do?
What is a better move for him to make anyway? It does make sense what he's doing. Basically, it's just try and hold out. I don't see what else there is he can.
Well, I don't think it even goes that far for him. I think it's just a case of he has the backing of the technocratic regime. The media are doing what they've done for years now, which is have a flap and say someone's about to go. And I think the awful thing is that most Tories, despite being part of that regime, would go anyway because it's quote unquote the right thing to do, because they're sort of wet and they care about image, whereas Starmer just doesn't have that dimension, so he just carries on. I think probably the British media, and something you really have to probably live here to understand, is the British media will never probably forgive him for this last weekend. This last few days, because they did a ritual, they did a rain dance, and nothing happened basically.
Yeah, that footage of Beth Rigby, sort of pathetically kind of trying to thrust the microphone at people yesterday, sort of going to and fro, trying to live into the drama of the moment, and yet nothing's going to come out of it for her.
Could you be Beth Rigby for the next 5 or 10 minutes? Do your Beth. I like it.
Ooh.
Big Beth Rigby. Big Beth.
Your accent is nowhere near hers, but it's funny. I love it.
It evokes it, though, doesn't it?
Yeah. Let me just share with you my favorite Starmer Stan account. It's this account called Third Eye 777. I don't follow it, but it's full of these memes of Starmer.
Spencer vibes there.
Yeah, it looks like Richard Spencer. Yeah.
Are you ready for the Starmerite revolution? You know, look at all of these. All of these.
That looks like Stalin.
All of these. Memes. Look at this. Never surrender. Never Starmer. Hey, look at the Ing-Sok.
The bot that's created these, like the pictures of Stalin and Richard Spencer, are obviously part of its training data, and it's like it's blending them with Starmer, right?
Look, it's got the 1984 Ing-Sok. Ing-Sok.
Wow.
There's so much of this stuff. Esoteric Starmerism. Look, all sacked, all enemies obliterated. Starmer prevails. It's one of my favorite little. Look, there he is, Starmer walking out.
That's not real.
It's just. Look,
Okay.
it's no longer symbolic. Down with the traitors for God, King, and Kia.
Excellent.
So yeah, that account is tickle my fancy past couple of days. But yeah, I thought I'd mention that. Before we get going here, chaps, I do have to play my my new promo code. It is cool for the spring. 25% off all courses with promo code cool. I'll play it, and when we come back, you guys can do some plugs, and we'll hit Trauma Zone. Everybody wants to be cool, like this guy. This guy is cool. Do you know who else is cool? People who do courses at the academic agency. And you too can be cool by getting a course today with promo code COOL, which gets you 25% off all courses today. Promo code COOL. I have to mention something about that advert. This is actually the second version of it, because my daughter, who is 6 years old, convinced me to put the panpipe man in. She is very tickled by that panpipe video, and when I showed her the cool, promo code cool, she was like, "Can you put the panpipe guy into it?" So I did, and it made her extremely happy. So yeah, that is her input, having the panpipe man. So there we are. Anything you want to promote for us?
Oh, sorry. Well, I'm at Infinite Horus on Twitter. I was just going to say that the panpipes always remind me of Civ 1 and Civ 2. They were always on the soundtrack to the old Civ games.
A lot of panpipes in Civ. That's true.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody here follow a YouTuber called George Rockall Schmidt?
No.
Go for quite a while. Okay. But he has this kind of I think Simon would like him. He has this very sort of postmodern joke of advertising a fake product called Hip Tang before all of his videos, and he does like a custom ad every single time for this fake thing called Hip Tang. And I do wonder if there are people who have started watching AA who don't realize that there are actually courses. These are not just artistic, side jokes. You can actually.
No, they are actually courses, yeah, and they are actually adverts for the courses. What does it seem like? Is my style so postmodern, Hat, that you think people don't realize that?
I think there are people who have only got in on sort of post collapse, post Trump, just hyper postmodern AA who probably don't actually realize any of it can be done sincerely.
Yeah, they're great. They're great because they're so, in a way, deprofessionalized. And if you attempt to professionalize them, they just wouldn't have the charm and the cachet that they do.
I mean, the thing I do, Simon, is that I deliberately do it a little bit sloppily.
Yeah.
Right. So I took no time to try to attempt to cover up the fact that I was just layering videos on top of each other there.
Yeah.
Because I kind of I wanted to capture a feel of almost like Windows 98 or something.
Something
like this.
Yeah, I like it when you do your hard sell voice, which is
dead.
That's also Vince McMahon, circa 1998.
Yeah,
it's the Royal Rumble.
Exactly,
and just because
no microphone technique.
unlike those horrific sort of American ads where everyone's trying to be really overly sincere and wants to be liked. There's a clear undertone of "I'm too good to be selling this shit to you anyway." That's what really makes it work.
In true postmodern fashion, there's the permanent Stuart Lee element, which is my get Also, my get out of jail free card because, you know, I mean, if you watch Lee and Herring, they had a lot of sketches that were pretty shite, Simon.
Yeah.
But there was always a sense that they thought, well, we could probably get away with it because we're making. Actually, it's a commentary on comedy. So,
See,
it's a commentary on an advert as well as being an advert.
Yeah. It's pre-internet mimetic crudity before there was an internet to speak of.
So anyway, shall we begin on Trauma Zone?
We can. I'm just going to plug one thing though. I've got myself and a friend have been working on a documentary about a 70s TV director called Lawrence Moore, and we're showing it next Friday, 22nd of May, at the Dorset. It's called the Dorset Nectar Farm, which is like a cider farm near Bridport. 7 p.m. You don't need a ticket. You can just come along if you're in that area of the country. Interesting director. He worked a lot with Granada TV in the 70s. And explored all sorts of just sort of out there topics, which are really good. And we think he deserves a bit of a retrospective. So we interviewed him, and then we just added footage, and we eventually ended up making a documentary. So there you go. It's not going to be like Adam Curtis, though. It's a bit more of an easy style that you would get on television.
And did you have anything you want to plug, Hat?
No, but I would urge everybody to support Simon's initiative.
Thank you.
If I can try to avoid the corpo speak initiative, I'm not sure. Support the film.
Sorry, I have to share this one as well. I just love that you just look at
Fantastic.
my new favorite thing, esoteric starism. Okay.
Starmishima.
That is also happening at the same level as my ads. I don't know if it's all ironic or if these people are like genuinely Labour supporters or what, but I don't care. I don't really care either.
I think there is a level of actual sincerity to it, because there's a moment of there. I think there is a catharsis of Starmer and the plebs, almost like the kind of high-low part of the high-low middle mechanism, and the media is the middle, where everyone else is just, no one cares about the kayfabe anymore, but they do. Look, we sort of ran around with mics outside number 10 saying you were going to resign, and you haven't done so. Why is this not the case?
Starmer.
Yeah.
Before we get one more thing. I haven't received an entropy super chat in about a month, which is highly unusual. There's usually some characters like Coney Current Year or Years or Sam153 and so on who are like entropy stalwarts. I don't think those guys have disappeared. So I heard a rumor on the block that entropy's gone down, that it's like gone bust or something.
It's finished, I think. Yeah, I saw posts about it. Yeah, it's gone. It's done.
So that means just delete entropy, does it?
Could be.
Okay, I'll just delete entropy so I don't have to. In a way, bad news for lots of people because you have to rely on it. But in a way, great relief for
Chat
us.
says Devon Stack says they've taken the money and run.
Entropy have gone, have they? Entropy have gone.
Could have just been a rug pull, so to speak.
I mean, they were all. One thing I'll give to Entropy, they were always extremely diligent at sending end of the month summaries and keeping us informed. But I'm having a look now. The last invoice they sent was in January, was it? Is that right? Seems quite a long time ago. But anyway, whatever the case, that's it for Entropy then. Which means I don't have to fiddle about with it before the stream starts anymore. Well, hey, could mean less money for me though. Boo. But I'm sure those people can find other ways. Okay, pick up a course. Promo code cool. Anyway, shall we get a move on, guys? This is going to be a great test. I put it on a lower volume, but let's see if we can even talk over it at this volume. Hold on.
Yeah.
Okay, well, obviously there's no sound at this time. What is that? quiet enough for us to talk over?
Seems
I think
good.
so. I hope we don't sort of end up talking over too much of it subsequently. But
Well, the music playing on the car radio here, for people who are interested, is from Verdi's Requiem. It's the Dies Irae, Day of Wrath. Day of wrath, O day of mourning, when the world shall dissolve in ashes.
What it felt like to live through the collapse of communism and democracy. Well, we kind of know what it feels like, Adam, because we're living through it right now.
This is it.
Do we know why he chose not to talk over this one?
Yeah, he said the footage was so strong in itself. He has his guy, Phil Goodwin, who goes around the world to all the BBC outstations, and he gathers up all the tapes that have been left sitting for years. He digitizes them, brings them back to Kurto, and Kurto just runs through the QuickTime files and goes shopping for footage.
Okay.
And he decided he didn't want to impose his voice, but I think it's a conscious thing, like I say, of taking away his own buttresses of music and voice and letting his own form collapse a bit.
I think that's a fantasy, but never mind.
Pause.
You want me to pause?
Yeah, before we go too far in, actually, because there's a few things that are going to come up fast. That initial footage that was from Poland. What he's done in this first episode is a lot of this stuff is leaning on pre-existing documentaries that the BBC already did for this part in the mid 80s. As it goes on, he starts to use more of this recently discovered footage, let's say, the rushes that happened from the sort of 90s onwards, which had never been put into BBC documentaries. So do you remember when we did the series, his documentary about Selfridges and the one about the seaside?
Mm-hmm.
And that was from a strand that was called 40 Minutes, where people were just given 40 minutes to do a kind of, a day in the world, or, a day in the life or whatever. And he's used a lot of footage in this series, I discovered, from a BBC show from 1985 called Comrades, which is about 12 episodes, all about the Russia of the time. And for interest, there's a number of different episodes he's drawn from. This chap on the screen, I recognized him from the stuff research I did when we did Can't Get You Out of My Head. That's Sergei Kuryakin. He is, if you like, an avant-garde musician who was part of the grouping around Limonov and Yegor Letov and Dugin in the sort of National Bolshevik, the run up to the sort of National Bolshevik Party era, the kind of the dissidents, the Soviet dissidents. And he's going to feature in a clip that we're going to see later on of a band playing in an apartment. But Kuryakin was part of a whole thing of what they called non-conformist artists or dissident artists. And that all took many forms. And here he's talking to a guy called Anatoly Belkin, who is a painter and a sculptor. And actually, I've looked at Belkin's stuff, and he's actually quite good, actually. He does stuff almost in a sort of way that you see modern British artists do it. He does like a little series of porcelain figurines of modern characters that you'd see in the Soviet Union called vanishing types. And I'll post some pictures up later, but he's kind of very interesting. And this part of this documentary here, this was a one called All That Jazz. Basically, Kuryakin had been a jazz musician and the government had banned him from playing, essentially. So when the BBC crew went to make these documentaries, for this one particularly, they couldn't get permission really to do it officially, to talk to Kuryakin. So what the producer did, a woman called Olivia Lichtenstein, is she went as a tourist to Russia, took a camera and filmed everything as if, she was just a tourist with friends, filming conversations and so on. And the interesting thing about this conversation is I watched it and I thought, you get the sense that they're conscious that they're dissident artists, they're outsider artists. They're conscious that they're being filmed and this is going to go out in the West. So the conversation is kind of as if they're using euphemisms to talk about things. They're talking about animals here, what sort of dogs they'd like to own. And then they go on and talk about various other things. And there's kind of I get the feeling that some of the words, the animals they're using are Russian euphemisms. Like they use the word I'd like to own some deer, and deer in Russian is generally used as a slang for people who are kind of stupid or clumsy. Talking about, dogs, well, a dog is often universally a kind of a euphemism for insulting people's character. They also talk about lemurs, and the origin of the Latin word for lemur is ghosts, so you get maybe a sense that, it's kind of a little bit more aware in terms of how they're talking and what they're talking about. They're talking about things that we can't talk about. We're referring to people who are not in the room, and we're talking about things which you can't really. As I say, the lemurs is one thing. He goes on to talk about, I'd love to have lemurs. All the lemurs are dying. I mean, there was actually a sort of a toxoplasma outbreak at this time, so lots of lemurs were actually dying. But there's, as I say, there's something about it that they're getting at. The Russians also used to use the word bandarlog, which was the name of monkeys in Kipling's Jungle Book, but they used to use it as coded language because it used to mean political opposition, and it was the political opposition that was manipulated by the West in Russia. So, as I say, I just felt maybe there was something about this conversation that was going on subtly underneath the level of just talking about owning dogs.
Is there also, like sometimes you'll meet, I remember when I was in libertarian circles, Horace, you'll know this as a hardcore libertarian, that some of the more hardcore libertarians you ever meet are people who grew up in the Eastern Bloc, or I grew up in a communist country, therefore I absolutely hate communism with all my spirit and soul, and absolutely love Coca-Cola or something like this. Is there a little hint of that happening? Because I couldn't help but notice they were singing a Coca-Cola song, and in my imagination, a Cocker Spaniel is a very kind of Western sort of thing to want. You know what I mean?
Coca-Cola song said it was an audition for Miss Poland '85 as well.
That's right. That's from a documentary called "Forget Me Not," which is in which is in that series of Comrades documentary. So it's not Russia per se, but it's obviously a communist country. I think AA, you've kind of hit on this before last week, I think, when we did, the Night Wolves, the nationalist motorbike gang, and you talked about the American aesthetics, and this is kind of going to come out with some of the things that we see here is that these dissidents, a lot of it is them kind of getting really stuck on American kind of ideas of freedom and cultural dissidence around things like, the Beatles and the kind of the music and all of this sort of stuff. And a lot of it does tend to sort of link back to this idea of, there's bits of the West that are creeping in, and actually it kind of becomes one way of resisting the system that they're in. So in a sense, the boomer truth aspect comes out.
To be serious for a second, though, I always think that the West truly did have something extraordinary there. A kind of dream machine, kind of a really seductive vision. Okay, it's McDonald's and Coca-Cola and Beatles or whatever, but it was kind of one we all know. It's all one we all bought into at some point. Obviously, we've all fallen out of love with that vision over time. But they had something really strong there. And the way they've botched it in the past 20 years has been quite extraordinary.
Yeah.
Because it's such an unforced error. It wasn't broken. They didn't need to.
Yeah.
I'm talking about woke. I mean, really, this is what woke is. It's just kind of really messing up something that worked. Because now it's well, who's got some more seductive vision? And I think 20, 30 years ago, you'd have said, well, if it's the mullahs versus the West, it's no comparison. Or if it's someone like Vladimir Putin versus the West, well, it's no comparison. Everybody wants to be Western. Everybody wants to be American. Whereas now it's not so clear cut because people around the world associate America with, gay race communism, basically.
Yeah. There's something in this, as I say. There's a few threads that start to come out that are about non-conformist art, whether it's in music or writing or even clothing. that will sort of emerge later on in the documentary. There's another one another word they mention I noticed, porcupine. I mean, in Russian, it's thought to be, it's used for like people with spiky hair, which like we might use it. You look like a hedgehog, but porcupine in Russian seems to translate as American bear. Again, so there's identifying people. He's saying you're like a porcupine. You've got this Americanness about you.
Я мечтаю, чтобы у меня жил кокер-спаниель.
Кокер.
Потом обязательно ирландский сеттер, обязательно 2 французских бульдога, значит, бультерьер. Бультерьер. Такой.
Это гибрид.
Нет, бультерьер это у генерала Паттона был такой, который разбил Роммеля. Вот. Потом, конечно, обязательно несколько пятнистых оленей. Обязательно дикобраз. Обязательно, конечно, будет жить у меня.
У меня примирательное пристрастие к лемурам.
Лемуры будут в доме по...
It is a weird conversation, Simon.
Yeah.
Have you ever said to anybody, the pet I really want is a porcupine? I don't think anybody's ever said they want a porcupine.
There's something about the sort of slightly tensed body language and the way he's got his hand in front of his mouth when he's talking. That sort of tell for when people are kind of being a bit surreptitious with them. I just felt there was something odd about the conversation, and they're aware they're being filmed. So
This guy looks a bit like a Russian Ed Dutton as well, I think.
really,
cold red.
It's interesting that these non-conforming artists were brought in quite early, as far back as '62. Khrushchev went to it was called the Manege exhibition, and sort of he got into a bit of a debate with them, about what's the function of art in the world. But it sort of created unofficial art as its own kind of movement. So the dissidence was being held within. The artists, I mean, basically, they wouldn't ever get shown officially, but it allowed them to exist. And it meant things like, I mean, generally, the punishments for being a kind of dissident artists went from, I mean, it meant if they were dissident artists, it meant that they were just denied admittance to the artists' union instead of being executed. So yeah, it was something of an improvement.
I associate porcupines with being diseased. Am I wrong about that? If I saw a porcupine in real life, I'd be really scared to go near it because I think it might give me
probably. Well, like I say, the lemurs had toxoplasma, and koalas are pretty disgusting from what I understand as well.
Is there is there not something of the Andrew Tate mindset in all this? Sort of like this very late Soviet sudden obsession with superficial aspects of sort of Western capitalist success, it's sort of, because this is exactly what I imagine a sort of very tasteless person would do with all that money, huge menageries of exotic animals and bizarre, it's quite a weird psychology, assuming that these guys aren't just being ironic, which I think they might be.
Yeah, to an extent. I think there is also a sort of just a complete, a different understanding of what you would do with capitalism if you had it. That it becomes this kind of fantasia of, they don't necessarily think, I mean, we looked at, century of the self, consumption becomes a way of, manipulating and enforcing desire, and then that becomes a management system. Whereas they haven't had a management system that works like that. They've had a hard managerial regime. So it's a different kind of musing.
Well, they can enjoy the capitalism when it comes around to them in a few years. We'll see all the effects of that.
This does perhaps prove that we don't have real capitalism in the West, though, and never did, because how many people have lemurs?
You'll be saying we don't have real democracy next.
Well, I'll leave that as a whole new debate.
Hayekian deviationism.
Steady
comrades.
on.
Do not listen. This is a Carl Benjaminite heresy. Put the
Simon, did you give him? Did you give Horace the barrier role?
I did say he was the head of the KGB in our little world. Yeah.
Oh dear.
Didn't Beria? I heard. I mean, it's anecdotal, but I heard that Beria used to select women off the streets who have brought.
He was a bit nasty. I think they found bodies under the house, didn't they, or something?
Yeah.
He's actually
Even in
well.
jest, I don't want to be associated with people like that, please.
Yeah. I just thought the
although-
ruthlessness aspect, really, the kind of hunting out the
Well,
enemies.
What have I done? All I said was we can't have real
No.
capitalism because
I know you're a bit too
even-
nice, really, to be the head of the secret police.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm quite gentle. But who's the most capitalist people you can think of? Whoever it is, they haven't got lemurs all through their house or anything. So it's just
Michael
bollocks.
Jackson probably would have.
I would.
It's
I would
like
just like to
Elon
add,
Musk has got one cassowary or something in his
Laurence
garden.
Olivier had lemur, by the way, called I think it's called Terry or something.
Salvador Dali had an ocelot. Famous.
Can I just say that the irony of this conversation is that having met these chaps last week, we did a little kind of real life meetup. Panama Hat looked like a man. I mean, he in real life he looks like a man that may cut a deal in Paraguay
Yeah.
for
Or Panama.
tax-free trading or something, or from Panama or something. He
He's a-
genuinely looks like a man who'd cut.
He's
a
the kind
deal
of
in
character who
Paraguay.
steps off a seaplane
Oh,
on
I
a
know
jetty
why.
somewhere.
No,
in South
the only
America.
reason they're saying this is because it was a nice hot day and I
Yeah.
had a white linen suit on. That's why they're saying this.
Whereas-
That's the only reason.
Incredible.
And again, don't take this wrong way, Horace.
Mm.
Horace looks more like a guy who might be on the coaching staff at Millwall or something like that. Like just a different.
I wasn't
different
actually. I
vibe.
wasn't in a tracksuit.
I
Were you
really,
wearing, you were
I-
wearing shorts.
I was wearing shorts. Yeah, it was warm.
I like the idea of this hardcore 30s NKVD, but it's run by Horus, who runs it like the old Bobby that used to come around and go, evening all.
Dixon of
But
Dock
it's-
Green. Yeah.
Yeah,
We
Dixon
took
of
the-
Dock
I was
Green,
put
yeah.
it this way.
Yeah.
In the end, you end up in the basement somewhere either way. But yeah,
If we had taken a
I'm gonna
team
give you a
shot
click
that
around the
day,
ears.
if we had taken a team photograph that day, Horace would have been a lot more likely than Hat to be the one doing the kneeling. Like they do in the like a football shot, like kneel. You would have been more likely to do that than Hat. Would you agree with that?
my
Horace?
knees. You should hear my knees cracking when I crouch down. I was wearing, just for the benefit of the audience, I was wearing like really neat chino shorts that were actually made for, they were bought like
Oh, nice shorts. Okay,
brother.
there we are.
But they were made for going out. They're not like training shorts. I've got some of them as well.
To be fair, it was a hot day as well.
Yeah,
which I
and
would
I
have thought.
and I was wearing like because it wasn't that hot and it might be cold later. I was wearing a Paul Smith hoodie that I bought in fucking Selfridges. It's not like I wasn't on the training ground. I wasn't wearing like a Theodore or a tracksuit,
He's the hard man.
All right, let's go. Yeah.
He came in like Don Logan from Sexy Beast. Everyone, that's what it was really like. Threatened us.
No,
Grosvenor.
no.
Yeah. Round
Friday,
trip.
you'll be there. You will.
Yes.
Adam Curtis, Wednesday, 2 p.m.
What you look like, Hat? Idi Amin.
Like a leather man.
Like-
Disgusting.
Make a suitcase out of you, fucking old all.
Они не ползают, они будут висеть, по всему дому висят.
Они умирают. Ты знаешь, сейчас эпидемия страшная.
Лемуров.
Да, и они умирают по непонятным причинам от обезвоживания организма.
I couldn't identify the song they're dancing to here, by the way. I wish I could.
So that you could dance to it.
I'd love to, yeah.
Это что родители все для него. Такая наша материнская доля. Встречать, провожать, никуда не денешься от этого. Ну ничего, надо все. Вы знаете, я Сашу провожала, я спокойно была. Почему?
Sasha
время
is a
было
male
более
name, isn't it?
спокойно. Сейчас такая обстановка напряженная.
Yeah.
Что все должны жить. Это священный долг, да? Священный долг.
His name was actually Valera Krylov, and he was 18. And this was, again, from the Comrades documentary strand, an episode called War and Peace. And he's going off to do his 2 years national service.
Afghanistan.
Probably went to Afghanistan. Unfortunately, I couldn't track down what happened to him, so I don't know if he survived. But this is kind of a bit of the brutal reality of Afghanistan. This was from a PBS documentary called Red Star
В
over Khyber.
Афганистане уже погибло
I'll post the
более
links up to these.
13 тысяч наших парней. За что? Я спрашиваю себя.
Or it is quite horrible, though. There's lots of lingering shots of Russians dying, so it's a bit nasty.
Well, it's Kurto. I mean, he loves the dead body, doesn't he?
Yeah.
You mentioned, the commentator there mentioned 13,000 of our boys had died at that point. It says
About 13 to
think-
15,000 Russian
And I think
Soviet
of-
troops.
Right, over the whole war, is that?
Yes.
And then
Till they left in
apparently
70.
something like 1 million Afghans were killed. It was a proper brutal war. Like, just sometimes whole little settlements being destroyed and stuff. And mass killing in some cases. People got on drugs and stuff and lost their minds as well. And just a terrible war.
Yeah.
You'll see some footage of a veteran later. Actually, that's quite stark moment.
Just on that preceding footage, the Voronezh collective farms. That was one of the sort of Soviet collective farm places that was developed in the 50s. I mean, today it's owned by German agribusiness. It
looked like it was functioning pretty well to me.
It was all right. It's very high quality soil there, apparently, but they get sort of bouts of extreme weather. But it was the 5th largest grain producing region.
Well, there we go. Take that, libertarian Horus. The collective farm worked.
Yeah.
Was that a kolkhoz? Is that the word for collective farm?
Right? I don't know.
Yeah, I think there was.
You could be right.
I think there were two different collective programs run by the state. I think the kolkhozes were one of the kinds of collective farms, but even in the Soviet time, there was businesses here and there that were owned by Western companies or run. This was a thing even from the 1920s. I think like the Soviet regime did invite over Western technicians and stuff because they're just there were skills that they just hadn't got in the oil industry, in steel and other heavy industries, and maybe in agriculture as well. But under Khrushchev, they did their Virgin Lands program. This was a famous disaster that led to them having to plead with America to import grain, which to send grain for cash, which America did. I think they may have even given some as aid as well. Yeah, in the 60s, in some of the sort of colder periods, America was giving grain to Russia, which is the biggest grain producer in the world, because they fucked up so badly.
This sequence with the police pistols, I should just say, is that they're training without ammunition. One of the problems is that there was obviously the war was going on in Afghanistan at the time, so a lot of it was being sent over there. But there was also a problem of they put a lot of stuff into deep storage, which they weren't opening, and there was also the thing of they were hacking into ammunition stocks. Those guns are Makarov pistols that were developed in the late 40s, and the Soviets would keep ammo for a long time, and then as probably our American viewers will know, ammo goes off, and so it may become useless, and also some of it was being nicked and sold. This is Curtis hinting at the sort of corruption that was going on in this sort of period as the 80s draw on. Obviously, in our propagandized Western brains, all I can think of is they're training to shoot people in the back of the head. Like when I was like, they're training for the firing squad. But that's just the strength of anti-Soviet propaganda built in me by copious 80s films, Bond films, history classes, and General Thatcher. I did see comments under the YouTube upload of this documentary from Russians who were split between a lot of Russians saying, actually, I found it really hard to watch this. It was very painful. I lived through this period. And there were other Russians saying, oh, who is this guy? It's very biased against Russians. I don't think Curtis is being biased. I think he's just taking, the footage he's got and stitching it in a way that, tells a story and immerses you into it.
Comrade, imagine leftist deviation, back of the head. It's Horus's girls.
Why are they training with a simulated shooting device?
They don't have any ammunition.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine there's no bullets. It's easy if you try.
Imagine if there's no bullets, but you still want to fire them.
Well, this is it. I mean, was there any fix to the Soviet economy by this point, or was it just a case of no, we just have to go to a market system? Is there any way out of this conundrum?
Yeah.
Well, my views.
There will be some interesting questions on this when we come to the section about the Tolyatti car plant. Which we'll ask about these things, and about there'll be sections where you can talk about was it the theory of surplus value or whatever it is in economics?
It wasn't communism. It wasn't communism that killed the Soviet Union. it was liberalism.
Mm.
It was the deviations of Khrushchev, and then the stagnation of Brezhnev, and the traitorous actions of Mikhail Gorbachev.
Mm.
I came across. Sorry, go on.
Well, I mean, but just imagine though, like you're trying to save the Soviet Union by just adopting the enemy system. That's obviously going to destroy this. It's obviously going to do the opposite. And if you ask me, there's quite a lot of evidence that there were men in the upper echelons of the Soviet Union that wanted it to collapse from Khrushchev's time onwards, really. So, yeah. Anyway, go on, Horace. Go on.
From Khrushchev's time onwards.
Yeah.
Who are you thinking of?
Khrushchev.
Yeah, I mean, there's the
wanted
secret
communism
speech.
to come to an end.
The secret speech in '56, he repudiates Stalin.
He repudiates Stalin.
The secret speech, the abandonment of Stalin's plans, the
loads
ridiculous
of communists thought that Stalin was bad for communism.
No. That's propaganda, mate. That's propaganda. Communism only actually worked under Stalin, and then
I agree with that.
Khrushchev's basic decision to try to shift the Soviet Union into a consumer-based economy. What absolute fucking nonsense. I mean, he just spent the past 20, 30 years getting a really strong, heavy industrial base, and then Khrushchev's like, yeah, but we need women's shoes. Of course it's going to bloody collapse the system. We need at least 20 different varieties of lipstick now. Oh, thanks,
Our
Khrushchev.
women should have something better than Jimmy Choo and Louboutin shoes and stuff.
Yeah, whereas Stalin, one style, one boot. Make your own shoes, for God's sake, for the struggle.
God, are you actually serious about this stuff? I
am serious, but not from the point of view of
not
from the point of view of what I would like to live in, because it was hard, but from the point of view of, do you want to try to make communism work? And from the point of view of making communism work, Stalin had the right idea, whereas Khrushchev and Gorbachev, it was always going to end when they took those decisions. So from that point of view, because remember your Mises, Horace, right? There's only the way of exchange or the way of force.
Yeah.
And once you
start
introducing, and once you start introducing the means of exchange or the means of like consumer preference rather than force, you go in the way of exchange. So it's only ever going to go in that direction. Exactly as Mises said, you can't have this halfway house. It's going to shift in one or the other. Yeah. Anyway,
I do see what you mean. Although I don't know that Khrushchev actually did anything to marketize the economy, did he?
Well,
didn't he just try to order production to be shifted more towards consumer goods? That is true, but that's still
he messed up the trajectory of the Stalinist 5-year plans and moved them in a different direction, a direction that the for all the reasons Mises and Hayek and so on say, the Soviet system could never do that. It was going to get more complex. It's one thing to, dragoon tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people into factories to produce industrial grade steel or tanks or guns or whatever. It's another thing to try to mirror a Western style consumer economy through price controls and lists of,
I think
you can't do that.
I think that's what Khrushchev wanted. He wanted to. Yeah, I think Khrushchev, as far as I know, I mean, this is largely based on what his son Sergei said, but he believed in communism as much as anyone, but he believed that it's completely wrong that communism results in a lower standard of living for ordinary people, and that therefore the Politburo, whatever the Econ Bureau, whatever, should just force the means of production to produce more consumer goods, because people should immediately, rather than having to wait another 50 years for socialism to be completed or whatever, they should just start to get more butter, more nicer shoes, more window.
Yeah, but I think he made a fundamental error, right, Khrushchev? Rather than look to the West and try to compete with America, which had a very strong vision, as we talked about, right, with its Coca-Cola and its dancing and its rock and roll and all that. Rather than try to compete with that, he should have focused, he should have diverted the money that he spent on trying to make this consumer economy into heavy propaganda on rejecting that and being like, actually, you only want one style of clothes. You know, like the Steve Jobs argument, you know, oh,
Right,
it's actually
okay.
anxiety inducing to have this much choice. It's better just to have one black outfit. You know, Simon
Yeah.
Cowell only wears that one black t-shirt every day, you know. They could have developed propaganda, be like, no, actually the Soviet way is better, comrade. You got certainty in life. You've got one pair of boots and one style of trousers
Yeah.
and one, and they could have communism could do that because you can mass produce, you know, black t-shirts or whatever. Whereas if you're starting to introduce consumer choice, that is impossible to map. You just don't, you have the knowledge problem and the price problem, obviously. So
my understanding of Khrushchev as well is he kind of anticipates a world of hyper-capital, like you say, with America. That I remember there's the thing about there's this exhibition in 1959 in Moscow, and the Americans come over and set up like a pavilion of American consumer goods, and it's all labor-saving stuff. And Khrushchev is kind of skeptical, right? Yeah, and Khrushchev's sort of skeptical about it, and he looks at all the gleaming machines, and he says, "Well, this is great, but you know, now all you need is the machine that, you know, puts the food in your mouth and digests it for you." You know,
I was partly basing what I said on Khrushchev's behaviour at that exhibition, because there's a famous bit where Richard Nixon's talking to him on stage, right? And Richard Nixon says, "It looks like you guys over here have actually got ahead of us in terms of rocketry," which I think at that stage was true, right? It's about the time of Sputnik 1 and 2 or something like that. And then he says, "But you know, we are actually ahead of you in some areas as well." He says, "Colour television," and he starts moving on. And Khrushchev goes, "No, wait a second. No, we'll overtake you in that in 10 years as well." And so it just gives an idea of what Khrushchev thought was important: rocketry and colour television, and, you know, consumer products. But he did want it all. He thought that communism could do all of it, rather than just tonnage of steel. You know, how many bales of this, and you know, whereas Stalin was extremely focused on heavy industry, and so were the people he'd appointed over his 30 years or whatever.
I would say Stalin was smart enough to have understood that you can't reproduce the capitalist price mechanism at the consumer level. I think it's to Stalin genuinely knew that's why he nixed the new economic policy in the 1920s and what's his name, Bukharin, and the so-called right deviation, because he knew where it would lead. He was like, look, if we let this get carried away, you know, you're going to indulge the kulaks and you're going to create a new bourgeois. Well, what happened in Russia? They did create a new bourgeois, and they did fucked up it basically undid communism, is what I'm saying. So I'm thinking, you know, don't get me wrong, I don't want to live in communism, right? I don't champion communism. I'm just saying,
clear
as a value-free analysis, from the point of view, you see, this is what people struggle with, logic people, right? If then statements, if then, it's a conditional statement. If you want this, then that. It's one of the first things they teach you in economics, right? If these things as a given, then these conclusions follow. And if your goal is to make communism work, then you don't do what Khrushchev did, and you don't do what Gorbachev did.
Yeah. This is the thing about the liberalizing influence I want to just briefly talk about, because when I was doing research for this series, the thing that came up in some of the interviews was, you know, this thing we've had throughout the series of people kind of speculating about what Adam Curtis's politics are. You know, he came from the background of a progressive family, but as he says, he wasn't quite as, you know, extremely progressive as a lot of them were. They were sort of dyed-in-the-wool socialists. But one thing that did come up in an interview was he said, despite what people think about, you know, what my politics might be, he says, I'm a completely modern creature. I just react to events as they come along. He says, you're aware that power is unequal, and you shouldn't cry about that fact. He says one thing, though. He says, to make it clear, he says he's not a liberal. He says, quote, never trust a liberal. The one thing that patrician liberals can't examine is themselves. They really cannot do it. After Brexit, they didn't examine their role in it. They did not examine any role they might have played.
Base Curtis.
Deviant liberals.
Where's the lie?
Eminye in the chat suggested promo code Comrade for your next sale.
Yeah, if I could get some visuals from this and splice them together, maybe the summer sale could be promo code Comrade. I should just mention this is the cover star, by the way. I stuck this woman on the cover. Do you know why, Simon?
Sexy.
I like the idea of a screen within a screen.
Yes,
we are
exactly.
The people watching this are watching four people.
Meta commentary.
Watch a screen within a screen.
Exactly.
So the viewer at home is at 3 levels of remove. See,
reminds me of that.
There you go.
You know that band Tool? They've got a lyric. It seems like I'm slipping into a dream within a dream. Reminds me of that. I just wanted to say, I'm the Bukharinite on this panel. I'm the right deviationist. During I think the First World War or something, or around that time, there was a debate among, because like Marxist parties were like an international thing until they sort of became more national when they staged the Bolshevik coup in a way. Like they became.
It was the second national, I think it was. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. And so like Lenin was as much a part of that as Rosa Luxemburg coming out of Germany, right? And he called her, I can't remember what the term was, but like it was like deranged leftism or something. He wrote an essay against
infantile leftism. Infantile.
That is
against left.
I'm
communism.
Lenin. Yeah, you're Rosa Luxemburg. I'm Lenin. So
No.
let's move on. Let's go. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Rosa Luxemburg.
Can I just add in one of my but actually you're making a serious point moments. That AA's perception there about the screen within the screen actually is very, very perceptive, I think, because this is one of the reasons why Curtis is talking about, he's not just talking about the Russian empire collapse, he's talking about our empire collapse. Ours has gone for 80 years or so, but he is talking about placement within ideology. I mean, you've talked about Althusser before. You're always in it. You're always in ideology, and that's the modern condition in Britain. Of course, is that we use irony to displace ourselves from being aware of it. But people like Zizek go on and they'll say that the great trick of ideology is not to appear to be there.
Yes.
And that's kind of a lesson for us on the right. This is the thing of people saying we're going to create this or create culture that's going to be right wing. The ideology doesn't proclaim itself when you're a successful hegemonic ideology.
I remember when I used to give that lecture, there'd be 18-year-old girls almost in tears, shell shocked, mind blown when I used to give that lecture, because I used to say, look, some of the things that you hold dear are ideology, whether you know it or not. And then I list even Harry Potter, even Frozen, even and I'd go into things that I knew that they loved. I could see that they got their badges on their laptops and things, and I deliberately point to even your choice of clothes this morning, everything that you think you are is already in ideology. And I just remember that it really did used to shell shock them, because for some of them it never occurred to them that they had spent their whole lives surrounded by things that were trying to nudge them, like Frozen or whatever else. And that was always very interesting to me, teaching that Althusser class. And the other thing was that they were always so comfortable deconstructing the 1950s, but they were super uncomfortable when I got them to look at power now. I used to give them like a current Vogue magazine or something, or trying to, some like black girl boss on the front. Well, see, the thing is, the text they were receiving had already been deconstructed and leftized, or so on and so forth. And it was just very interesting watching that process play out. So, and now I get to do it with tens of thousands of people every day, Simon.
And you can enjoy their eyes welling up with the tears of realization as they're broken from their shackles of ideology.
Люди всегда будут такой красивый, обаятельный, красивый, модно одетый, хорошо выглядеть, в хорошем настроении приходить к нам на родину. Знаете, Галина, я почаще буду приходить к нам.
I remember I had one student in the she was doing some sort of dissertation in the third year. She came to me really pensive, and she was like, "Oh, I've been doing all this research, and I've been looking into this, that." I can't even remember what her topic was now. And she said that Althusser lecture you gave 3 years ago, you weren't joking, were you? she had obviously come up against like the limits of the of where she was kind of allowed to go, and I was like, interesting, but yeah, I always love to see the wheels turn.
I think it's a deep, important realization. This stuff. I mean, as we see here, the frames within the frames, and are you aware of the frames that you're within? And this current kind of ferment and hysteria we've got going about things like restore, for example. I don't want to get diverted onto this, but this thing of, being based enough in some way, and looking at the people who are actually going to be successful politically. Again, they don't sit there trying to self-authenticate their ideology all the time, like tone, for instance. It becomes normal. It is normal. You talk past the sale. This is just reality. It's not a question of enforcing a right-wing culture or a right-wing mode. That's not what they do. You've got it wrong if you think it's going to be some sort of coercive form like that. It just elides with how people are, so to speak.
This is why I'm more interested by things like this esoteric Starmerite stuff going on, because the aesthetics and the memes are clearly from naughty parts of the right, but obviously it's Starmer. So it's like, how do you even pass this? They kind of did it with Dark Brandon. Do you remember all that stuff with Dickie Spencer, as always, does it first, but there was the Dark Brandon aesthetic where he was like willing Joe Biden to lock Trump up and stuff like that. But for a little while there, a few people engaged in trying to like make Joe Biden this. It didn't really work with Biden though, because he was such a tool. But it kind of works a little bit better with Starmer, because he does seem a little bit authoritarian. So I'm kind of, these are the bits which are interesting because they're genuinely transgressive. It's not transgressive to do it with Farage or even Rupert Lowe or somebody like that, or to do it straight up. It is transgressive to do it with Starmer, though. Do you understand? It scrambles too many signals at the same time. And to me, that was always, we talk about, the original alt-right 1.0. They were always at their best when they were culture jamming, when they were just doing stuff that other people could not understand. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, Curtis has another thing about that, actually. He says he got into trouble when he talked about Michel Foucault at one point, because Curtis was in academia at one point before he left to do, what he calls trash television in the early 80s. But he said he got into trouble when he talked about Foucault, because he said that Foucault only said one very straightforward and banal thing. And he said that power doesn't work through doesn't just work through what you think of as power. It works through all kinds of things. Yes,
and in fact, this was the big advance, quote unquote, of Foucault over Althusser, who was his mentor after all. Which for Althusser, everything flowed through the state. Everything was a function of state power, whereas for Foucault, there are all sorts of hidden power dynamics, even between individuals, even between just outside of officialdom. I'll just put it that way, which would mean that Foucault would have a better time of explaining something like Epstein Island than Althusser would. I'm not sure how Althusser would explain all of that in his system, but whereas Foucault could very easily explain it, because for him all power is down on the individual level, between individuals, and it kind of sometimes goes in multiple different directions. So yeah, anyway, let's carry on.
2 рубля. В ней находились следующие вещи. Одна мужская рубашка стоимостью 9 рублей, зубная щетка одна стоимостью 30 копеек, футляр зубной щетки стоимостью 40 копеек, зубная паста семейная стоимостью 50 копеек, бритвенный прибор безопасный стоимостью 2 рубля, металлический стакан 1 штука стоимостью 50 копеек, помазок 1 стоимостью 4 рубля, лезвие Восток 10 штук стоимостью рубль 50, очки без футляра стоимостью 3 рубля, трусы мужские 1 пара 2,50, майка стоимостью 2 рубля 50 копеек, сандалеты мужские 1 пара стоимостью 8 рублей, принадлежащие гражданину Подурец Тимофею Дмитриевичу, а всего похищено на общую сумму 38 рублей 40 копеек.
That was a bit of footage again from the Comrades series about the work of a judge. Again, I'll
So
post
you wouldn't get that. You wouldn't get that now with your middle class M&S mum shoplifters that are apparently happening, would you?
No,
they were so we're told. That's the case.
she was a woman who, I mean, she'd grown up on a collective farm. She was called Tamara Alexandrovna Russo. She'd grown up on a collective farm. She'd had 2 kids, you know, straight away, and then her husband had died, and she'd basically picked up a bag of stuff. She worked in a hospital in a gastroenterology department, which I can relate to, and she'd picked up a bag of stuff from somewhere, and then she felt guilty and returned it, but there were some items missing, and there was this it was possessions belonging, like a pair of sandals or something, belonging to this guy, Citizen Podorets, who was in the court there, you know. But, did you mention in the previous thing about the TVs going on fire? Did I see a caption about that at all? Was that there? No.
TV's caught fire.
Was it in the TV production factory? I don't know. That he mentioned something about TVs catching fire, but it doesn't matter. We'll come to it again.
The one small thing I like, see this chap in the uniform here.
Oh yeah.
I just love the idea of the young Putin having grown up around men like this. The current leaders of Russia, kids or young men under guys like this, which is why they're like the way they are now.
He's an interesting guy. He is a literal hero of the Soviet Union called Ivan Kozhedub. He was the highest scoring fighter ace of World War II on the Allied side.
Wow.
British, Americans, Russians, 64 victories. And he had
a genuine legend, a genuine war hero.
Totally, yeah. He had about 30-40 medals. He had Hero of the Soviet Union 3 times. He had 2 orders of Lenin, 7 orders of the Red Banner, Order of Alexander Nevsky, Order of the Patriotic War, and just dozens of others as well. Hardcore, tough guy, and one of those.
Did he get to meet the big man? He must have, with all those honors.
Probably, yeah. Probably there'll be another one, another sort of. I mean, they look so Russian, don't they? This is the thing with the eyebrows and everything. There's another guy who's going to come up in a minute called Georgy Timofeyevich Beregovoy. He was a cosmonaut. Again, you know, very high achieving in that system. That's Beregovoy. Yeah.
Ooh, revisionist. Deviationist.
Poor Gorbachev.
Horus trying to save himself. From
He was sold as so likable anyway. Yeah.
Western stooge.
We could do business with him.
Horus by the end of the series will be like Winston at the end. You know, I love you, big brother. I love.
I do read these. You know, there's that Slav. What's his name? That Russian guy, Rurik Skywalker, who. One of your audience tries to get you to engage with, right? Yeah. There's someone else wrote quite a similar sort of thing the other day, and it was pretty sensible. And like there is something to look into, like the figure of Alexander Yakovlev, who was one of the main. I know he was an advisor to Gorbachev. There's probably other things as well, and he does seem someone who was as much as anyone was eager to dissolve the whole thing, dissolve the Soviet Union, and basically move to some sort of market socialism, if even that. So. If that is even a meaningful thing, market socialism. But yeah, like so, there is something to all these theories of like actually wanting to dissolve. But I do think some of it's exaggerated as well. Like these theories don't seem to account for all the figures who were genuine continuers. You know, like continuity, just old school communists. Because there was that as well. You know, there was that last minute coup. It was too late, but there was that coup against Gorbachev in 90, I think. You know about this, right? There was these 4 leaders. Khrushchev was one of them, the head of the KGB, and 3 other guys. They overthrew Gorbachev for like 2 days, but people said they could see them trembling because they were so unsure of what they were doing, and it failed, obviously. But yeah, I just I think all that side is interesting as well. There was masses of people who were trying to continue the Soviet Union. Yeah. Anyway,
just a brief note also on the big Chad fighter ace Kozyadub there as well. 2 of the people he shot down were Americans, so he was pretty keen.
Like I would just say about that guy, I'm sure he was the real deal. But like they did create propaganda heroes as well in the war.
Yeah.
There was like this female sniper where they just massively like multiplied the number of people she killed by like 10 or something. Or sometimes, I mean, sometimes they just make people up as well. I'm sure that.
Like Stakhanov, you know, and the coal mines, you know.
Yeah, it was almost mythological.
Shifting tonnages.
Yeah. And then Stakhanovism was used to drive everyone ill. But what was the other? There was in the current Russia-Ukraine war. There was a figure, what was it called? Like the sniper of the ghost.
The ghost of Kiev.
The ghost of Kiev.
Is that even a real person?
Well, I don't think anybody ever established it. People kept saying it was Sam Hyde, but you know, that's just memetics, isn't it?
I thought it was Sam Hyde. Was it?
Sam Hydovsky is someone's. Or
did he just piggyback off it? I wasn't. Yeah, it's a very successful meme in any case.
Yeah.
The old Wittans used to look a bit like this.
Should do.
There's something very sort of 70s Wales Labour Party about this as well.
It is, isn't it?
It is.
Because there was something, because there was a time when, rather than it just being kind of, you know, Labour Party caring in our communities type part, you know, there was a time when it was really about sort of Stalinist socialism. Yeah. You know, we're going to vote Labour to build the industry.
You could just see them doing Men of Harlech, couldn't you? Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was only in the 90s that they stopped singing the red flag at their conferences, right? Or I think they may have even brought that back. Like, yeah.
If only.
Yeah.
I went to that mine, which is it's an old closed down mine in up in the valley somewhere. You should go there, Hat, or we should go there together because it's fucking brilliant.
That would be wonderful. Group trip.
It's like it's an old coal mine in a Snowers museum, and they've got a couple of rooms in there.
Oh, this is a big pit in Glenavon.
Yeah, it's kind of
I've been there.
It's yeah, I mean, it was like, you know, there's like a pub there now and a couple of other things, and it's basically a museum. But they've got a room that you can go into where they've got all like the old miner stuff from the 20s and 30s and 40s. And it's all like just hardcore communist material, you know, with, you know, open support of Moscow and the Soviets, and, you know, like, here's like Owen Price meeting Comrade and some Russian bloke and all that sort of stuff. It's all just there on display. Like the miners were properly into it.
I mean, and also there were a huge amount of them. There was a tradition of working class self-education where you'd have a very basic set of sort of literacy at school. Then throughout your working life, you'd subscribe to something like, you know, the Left Book Club or something like that. And you'd basically be given good quality but reasonably priced editions of not just leftist work, but just the classics of literature, you know, Shakespeare and Milton and Hazlitt and Poe, you know, just these there was these great this great sense that you had to build upon the tradition rather than sort of deconstructing it, which is what the left got into in the
and that became the model for this channel, working class self-improvement.
Yeah.
Very much. I'm still a comrade at heart.
Yeah,
I mean, but I do like this idea of us going to this old coal mine because I would like for Simon to film it as a documentary.
Oh yeah, I'd love to.
Two of us going down the pit.
Yeah, One of the things Curtis is doing in this series, and you'll see on-screen tags from now time to time, he'll talk about how many miles it is from Moscow in each of the locations. The Voronezh collective farms are about 300 miles from Moscow, about 6 hours drive. This is Vorkuta. This is literally in the Arctic Circle. This is about was it something like 1,200 kilometers away from Moscow. So this is properly bloody grim in terms of the Soviet Union.
Don't know if anyone's ever like the Vorkuta, I believe, was part of the gulag system, right? And
yes.
Political prisoners was largely the reason for the gulag system.
Yes.
They already had like prison camps for common criminals, but built 60 years before. So built in the 20s. So that was when the gulag was getting off the ground.
Yeah.
And I recommend people read even just like a brief history or like a documentary or something about the gulag, because it is an interesting, like, important part of history. I think over its whole span, it probably included tens of millions of people, and like literally some people were born in the gulag and stuff. It was an astounding. It was a huge thing as well, a huge sort of industry stroke prison camp. Vorkuta was part of it.
And the thing is, as you say, once people were kind of, as it were, sort of released from bondage, the sad thing is a lot of people stayed there because there was nowhere else to go. That's how ingrained it was. That's
sort of made a life there. Yeah,
in a way. Yeah, there was one interview I remember reading with a 90-year-old woman who she'd been released in something like 1957, but she'd stayed there for the rest of her life. She said, "Well, what would I do?"
I think you're thinking about it the wrong way. I think that shows they weren't that bad.
Right. Well, yeah. Like in the Shawshank Redemption, isn't it? The guy who actually doesn't want to leave prison because he's just got used to it. I just wanted to like about what you guys said about that museum about the coal mine in where was it, Glenavon or something. Do you guys find it curious or interesting at all the way that the left, I guess because we've all grown up in the time of the new left in a way, we're used to sort of anti-traditionalism and subversion and stuff as like aims of the left, but going back somewhat further and continuing after the sort of coming in of the new left as well, the old left, you could say, there's quite a lot of traditionalism about it. There's quite a lot of sort of honouring of the past or of tried and tested methods, even if that.
Yeah, they weren't liberals. They weren't social liberals. They were, they were socialists. They were in fact, even more than that, they were working men's parties and working men's institutes and clubs and things like that. So they gravitated towards fighting for their own interests more than anything else. As you might imagine,
there's a certain reverence sometimes among them as well. You could even say a little religiosity about it, like they have a certain reverence for icons of socialism or achievements of the past or battles won, struggles won.
They were also, I would say this is probably more broadly speaking for everybody back then as well. They were more into kind of remembering people who had gone before. So you'd go to old pubs or you'd go to old working men's clubs, or my dad was a firefighter, or when I was growing up as a second job, right? He was an engineer, but as a second job he was also a fireman. He just didn't need the money. He liked the adrenaline, or he liked being a fireman as well. And in that when I go there was like an old snooker hall there, and and obviously there was the picture of the fireman, okay, but then there were the picture of the fireman from 20 years ago or from 40 years ago, or the ones from like the turn in the from the Victorian era, and they were all still on the wall. So there was that sense of just kind of just remembering the people who'd gone.
And I will say that's important, apart from just the fact, as you've been talking about, Horace, the ways of the left. I think that's why it's important to understand them at a time where, if you look on the left on things like Twitter, they have a completely bizarre idea of what people on the right are thinking. They construct a sort of enemy in their own minds, but also the idea of memory is important, because I saw the other day there was someone who shall remain nameless on nominally on the right side of the sphere, who had posted a meme. He tried to make a joke about somebody posting coal, and the picture he'd used for the meme was a picture of the Aberfan disaster. and he got a bit of pushback for it because there were people who said, "Oh, that's kind of sick," because for people who don't know, the Aberfan disaster, it was a town, 1966 in Wales. There was a big coal slag heap on the side of the mountain. It rained, the slag got wet, and it cascaded down onto the village. It suffocated a school, and I think it was about 116 kids were killed. So, and so it was a horrendous thing. But when the pushback happened, I saw some people saying, "Oh, why people bothered about it? It was a long time ago." And I thought,
terrible.
Yeah, that's not
on the so-called.
The joke also just didn't work as well. Like, I mean, loads of people wouldn't know what that picture was. And
Sure,
it was just stupid.
Yeah,
awful.
Yeah.
And as you say, I mean, you're looking at an image which contains, over 100 dead children, in that under that
trapped in the buildings.
Yeah, possibly still alive. I mean, it's a very, very harrowing, gruesome image if you know the.
I didn't
really
even know it
people.
until I've been staring at it for a while. I didn't even know it was Aberfan. I thought that's a colour picture. I thought Aberfan was before colour.
But even my parents remembered it in the same sort of way, really. And we didn't live in Wales, but it was such a horrendous tragedy. Yeah,
it was only the early 60s. It's within living memory.
60 years ago.
Yeah, it was very, but also, I mean, something that's put me a bit ill at ease with the right in general is that it does attract that underlying tendency, especially in its more kind of sort of like ironically humorous ways. It does attract that sort of slightly psychopathic person who just sees humor in pricking things, for just kind of pure id, but not in a way that's got any real sense of fun or flair to it, or kind of actual humor. It's just kind of there is a malevolence there, and I think that's probably where that urge to say, well, who cares if it's some dead kids from ages ago, we'll just because that feeds then into the slop and the kind of
it was the idea that nobody remembers. It's not probably if tasked they would say it's terrible, it was kids, but the idea was that because nobody remembers, it sort of doesn't matter.
And that's just twaddle anyway, because the same people do believe that other aspects of history matter, probably.
Sure.
And if you don't, you're not really on the right anyway. I mean, it's just.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I don't get to see any of this stuff anymore. I'm so I don't get, apart from clearly the algo is so clever, it figured out this is the sort of guy who'd love the esoteric Starmer stuff. So we'll feed him that in amongst nice pictures of cottages and
promos for the Mortal Kombat film.
Yeah, exactly. I still haven't seen that. I'll go.
No, you're going to go see the theatre version where it's all women.
I want to see more combat. You see, this is the trouble. Wrong crowd, Horus. Was it Pharaoh was just absolutely appalled by the suggestion of going to see Mortal Kombat, but
it's the aesthetic set. Certain lines
because it's shit, right, basically.
Yeah,
you have to go and see Glengarry Glen Ross instead. You can't go see Combat.
All women, Glengarry Glen Ross.
I mean, given the choice, and as I've already seen the film of Glengarry Glen Ross, and there's no chance of the theatre version being better, with women, I would go see Mortal Kombat if I. You are going to go to that.
We're going to go and see that. We witnessed the atrocities, so you don't have to.
I'll tell you one thing, most remakes are, I mean, not all of them, but most remakes or new reboots or whatever are shitter than the original, and the original Mortal Kombat was shit, except for Christopher Lambert, who was all right, but yeah, it was crap. This one will be crap as well, although Judge Dredd in the 90s was crap, and then the newer one was actually better, so it's not always work, but
I may have to end up going to see that one because I can't use the excuse to my daughter because she's obviously too young to watch it.
Dear. I mean, it'll be rubbish, won't it? So,
yeah, probably.
Won't
it? Don't do it. Don't fall into the hate watching slop cycle of reacting.
No, I want to do it. I won't do it from hate. I'll do it from. I've been remembering the joy of Mortal Kombat gave me in 1992.
Anyway. Oh, you mean more? Sorry, I thought you were talking about Glengarry.
So. Oh, right. Well, no.
Yeah.
I would never go and see an all-female Glengarry Glen Ross ever. Anyway,
You know the bit in Glengarry Glen Ross where Al Pacino goes, "You stupid."
Yeah.
and he swears quite severely.
Yeah.
The bit in the female one it'll be like you daft bloody rotter, like you rascal or something.
Oh, they'll wreck that like amazing moment.
Yeah,
That's
that'd be
amazing.
interesting.
Do you think they'll make it sort of, they won't do the American accents, it'll be slightly twee British office sort of lingo instead of Americanism?
Oh, it has to be American. There's no way you could do that.
You wank puffin.
Oh, you bloody cockwomble, you!
Yeah,
that kind of, you know, that kind of horrible millennial, quote unquote, clever swearing thing.
I hate cockwomble and that.
I know. It's,
give your head a wobble. Fuck off.
A Glengarry Glen Ross that's reorientated totally around female bitchiness rather than masculine aggression.
I predict it's going to be Glengarry Glen Dross. Let's move on.
Anyway, speaking of women.
Do you think the Russians have their own version of, you know, I had to ride a bike 1,000 miles to school when I was your age type thing, but it's actually, you know, I was in the gulag when I was your age.
It's literally this. I mean, oh, she's a big girl. Women were about
well-fed, not starving like what you think.
Women were
Horace. She was fat.
I mean, she's well fed on white bread. Yeah, she managed to chaff some more bread tokens from the guy she's shagging or whatever. Yeah. You know, like she's shagging the governor or something. Everything in a communist system is queuing for a voucher to join another queue to get something that's run out. That is what that is.
Such is life in the West. Queuing up for your Labubu. Queuing up for your Glengarry Glen Ross, queuing up for your, you know, burger.
The other day, I ordered some chocolate to be delivered because it's much cheaper to buy it off the internet, and it was promised to arrive in 3 or 4 days, and it arrived the next morning. It was amazing. That is capitalism.
Under promise, over deliver.
It was like too early, if anything. It was like sooner than I wanted it to come. It's amazing. Yeah, it's brilliant. And that was DPD, who used to be terrible delivering it. Anyway, see here, AA, they demanded free elections. You're the one who wants to deny them that. They demanded it, the people. But the what do you call it? The Narodny.
Actually, I think you'll find that was in the original spirit of what Stalin wanted when he wrote the Constitution in 1935.
Free elections, as in they're free to choose him or not.
He wanted free elections, and he was talked down by the Politburo. Time you can read. You can ask Carl. You can ask Caleb Morpin or Grover Fur or many other trusted comrades about this.
I came across a hater channel of you against you, and it singled out your interview with Grover Fur as proof that you are an actual Soviet agent or Russian agent.
Oh God! I think I know that guy's a nutter. It's the guy I think it is.
Yeah, this was 88, 89, as they're saying. There were strikes and there were demands for self-management, and they had actually a list of 41 demands that they wanted, which was the ability to elect the mine management, increase pay, reduction in admin apparatus as such. And the thing is, this will be an interesting comment later on when he talks a bit more about state industries and the kind of paradoxes of state industries. Quite a lot of women, by the way, in the gulags, sometimes up to 30%. A lot of them were sent there as enemies of the people, and they had to work just as hard as the men.
Now, you might decry that, but imagine if we had that capability in the West.
Send women to gulags.
Can imagine how many you'd send.
Fantastic.
In fact, would there be any that you wouldn't send? That would be the question.
Jess Phillips, please face the wall.
As Eminye says in the chat, like Stalin wanted free elections where you were, your choice was whether to vote for Stalin or not. That was
Again,
it.
so much propaganda, so much.
Whether to go or stay at home. Yeah.
There was never any question of voting for Stalin because he was the secretary of the General Secretariat of the Politburo or whatever, General Secretary. That is not an elected role. You elect the chairman of the Supreme Soviet and the other one, the Kalinin and the premier. Was it the premier and like the head of the government. Those are the two elected roles, not the general secretary. So that's wrong.
Sorry.
Номер 2 и номер 4, ну, там у нас находится только дежурный слесарь, и больше почти въехала, воздух ломать. Необходимо снизу пробить.
Have you guys watched Chernobyl, the TV drama?
Yes, yes.
Did you like that?
Yeah, it's great. That's good. There was interesting factoid about that town though, Vorkuta. There was a story actually back in 2001. The mayor wanted to have like an official legal brothel because people were getting a bit demoralised living in Vorkuta and were leaving, and the population more than halved. And he said he was very progressive, but he said it was getting difficult to find decent women on the streets.
Right.
So it would help. It would help with the economic problems of the town.
Tonnage of women on the streets needed to be brought up to meet the plan.
Yeah.
Number of hookers working at any one time had to be driven up.
So here's old Chernobyl.
That looked like a nice picnic they were over there. They had like a roast duck in the middle, and they had like meat kebabs and stuff. That looks like no one really likes Russian food, do they? But that looks good.
That was from the Comrades documentary. That picnic sequence, the young chap going on national service before he goes. And
So
yeah, actual Chernobyl. I've not. I've watched clips of it. It's very good. So a lot of the documentaries he uses in here are actually very, very good. Like the Selfridges one that we did. Very good, compact pieces.
That room was the same as in the drama. That was like almost
that
the
was
same
the actual.
room.
Yeah, that was the room.
Jestem menadżerem zespołu obecnie. Tak, menadżerem. No i
Goes
mam
back
drugi
to the
wokal, ale jeszcze
Miss
mnie nie
Poland
nagrali.
contest in again.
Tak, coś gramy między Rush, Police a King Crimson.
Wow.
What? We're somewhere between Rush, Police and King Crimson. What?
Yeah.
Oh, she in a band or something?
See that blonde girl on the right of the screen? Very pretty girl. She doesn't actually get through. And the documentary, a lot of it's about watching her sort of reacting to the other women as they are turned into beauty contestants.
You've got to give props to Poland. They do just flat out produce a lot of good-looking women, don't they? The Polish race.
This is the mausoleum under the Mamayev Kurgan, the big 300-foot statue which we came across in the previous series. Can't get you out of my head. Obviously the young recruits being marched past. That's where, if people remember that film Enemy at the Gates, Vasily Zaitsev, the Russian sniper, he's buried in there.
The one with Jude Law and Ed Harris.
That's it.
That statue is in Volgograd, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's a tomb for about, that hill has got about 30,000 dead Russian soldiers from Leningrad underneath. Stalingrad, sorry.
So in the Soviet Union, when they did this kind of very high-end couture, how does this? Because obviously high-end fashion only works if you have an economic elite. So. Was this done just for purely artistic purposes, or
I wonder if it was done more for Western consumption, because there's actually a stream, another documentary I found contemporaneous with that of a fashion show going on for Russians, which is a bit less flash. So I wonder if that was a bit of a thing to actually sort of get people to think about putting money into Russia through.
The size of that pit for mining diamonds, the amount of diamond that will. It's about tiny little rocks.
That's the Mir diamond pit, a town called Mirny. It's about 1,700 feet deep, which is about the height of One World Trade Center is now. Very, very deep.
The rebuilt Twin Towers.
Yeah. Very similar to I went to Kalgoorlie in Western Australia, and there's a thing there called the Super Pit, which is very similar, very just conical, Dantean vision of hell.
And the amount of diamond that will come out of that will just be a handful of stones, probably.
We'll never know, will we?
Right, well. Pause for a second. I do. Were you going to say something, Simon?
You go on.
What you mentioned, Hat, a moment ago about having an elite. I think there was, based on other stuff I've read and watched, you know, the nomenclatura, they would still constitute
Yeah,
an elite who had
obviously.
some money, and they would get stuff imported, maybe.
There was literally a high elite, but obviously in the logic of the system there isn't. And obviously, like even the Soviet nomenclatura aren't quite the same as, you know, rich Italian contessinas, right, who can afford to go to Milan, buy high-end, you know, couture and things like that. It's just quite an old. Again, I think this is the whole problem: is that communism post-Stalin lost its sense of identity and just became, all right, well, we'll just give everybody many consumer goods as they want all the time. But of course, the obvious issue there is that capitalism will win every single time on that metric. So there's no point. If you're going to do communism, it has to be basically theological. You know, it has to be the materialist religion. If it's going to work at all, it cannot be predicated on easy material gains, ironically, which is what it ultimately promises. When there's a lot of people in interviews who remember the Soviet Union in the old days before the collapse, they say there was this big feeling of betrayal when the whole system came down, because there was a sense that for your entire life and your parents' life and probably your grandparents' life, you've been lied to, because everyone had this feeling of, well, we're in it together. We're gonna put up with deprivation now because we're working towards socialism. You know, it may not be next year, it may not be in 10 years, it may be 500 years, but at some point we will achieve capital S socialism, and there will be genuinely sort of, you know, honey and buns for tea for all.
This ties into this sequence here in a way as well, because you see this guy being taken away to a mental hospital, but one of the points being made here is about incarceration on mental health grounds in the Soviet system. What they would do is they would diagnose with what was called sluggish schizophrenia or slow progression schizophrenia. It's not really a diagnostic that's taken seriously in the West. And it was obviously basically tailored to get political dissidents out of the system. And tied to what Panama was saying there was obvious things that got you locked up in a mental hospital, like, for instance, having what they call anti-Soviet thoughts. But another crime that people had in their mind was what they call delusions of reformism. So the idea that you're thinking you could change the system. I mean, I know it's funny, isn't it now? People suffering delusions of reformism. But yeah, the idea that you fundamentally didn't accept the reality, not just were hostile to it, but you thought you could change it to something better, which is quite interesting. But I mean, it could range, and it was obviously people. I mean, this guy may actually be genuinely, dissociative, mentally, ill, schizophrenic, for example, or he could be a dissident. Who knows? But
I mean, this isn't a million miles away from just the back of a pub in Wales at this moment, probably Cambran or something. And it's probably what it looks like, what they roughly what's being said.
Yeah.
He wouldn't be going to a mental hospital though. He'd just be, the guy that sits there and says that.
Yeah. I mean, he's just me in 10 years' time, probably.
Yeah, my immediate impression is he's just a normal bloke. Right?
Yeah. Leave me alone. Go away.
I don't see what mental problem this man has. Maybe he did something awful we didn't see.
So cheeky juxtaposition here, Curtis. The mental man goes in the car, and Gorby comes out of the car.
Classic Curto.
I think it's.
You disagree with that? Like, you disagree with these captions? These captions, where it said he still believed that communism was the way, but radical reform was necessary.
Yeah, I think
you believe that he was against communism. Okay.
Yeah, I think he was lying, and I think there's a lot of evidence for that as well.
So this is Curtis clipping a 1977 documentary the BBC did about British Leyland workers visiting Togliatti, and their reactions to it. And I'll post some of the clip later on.
Is this business named after the Italian communist Togliatti?
It is, yes. Palmiro Togliatti. I have quite a lot of
interesting,
a whole drawer of personal memorabilia from the Togliatti plant. Because personal connection, my grandfather was one of the engineers that built it. They hired Welsh engineers to go and recreate this manufacturing plant. Yeah. Then he brought back a huge amount of Soviet memorabilia I still have.
Oh wow! There's interesting about going to what AA was saying. I just want to just quickly finish this bit off. Is that when you focus in the Togliatti documentary, the BBC one, it's realised that the bosses there have no real job. They don't have any say in how many cars are produced or where they go or how much they get for the cars. So in a sense, the corruption that happens becomes a bit easier to understand when you realise that they're just kind of in these state industries kicking their heels. And I mean, in David Graeber's terms, they have kind of what we call bullshit jobs in this period.
Why did the state keep them? Why did they bother having them at all?
Exactly. Why?
Same way it keeps the HR woman in some corporation. It just there is some internal logic that needs them to be there.
It's a signifier of continuity of the system as it should be. As I said, you can't reform it.
No.
I was going to say, just that's one thing I find a little charming about sort of communist internationalism is the way that, in the Soviet Union, they would name one of their major industries or plants after a foreign comrade. That's like, in the spirit of sort of communism. I quite
well,
like
also,
that.
it does go back away. I mean, not to harp on the Welsh thing again, but there is a town in what is now Ukraine. Well, actually, right in the contested area, which is called Yuzovka, because it was named after another Welsh engineer called Hughes, who built it in about 1860. I mean, that was in the Tsar era. So.
Imperial times, okay.
Yeah. And also, can I just say, before we carry on, amazing frame here because it looks like she's a giant looking down at this little businessman in his face.
Poor guy.
Great split dioptra. Yeah.
He's the man who's had these bags stolen by her.
Yeah. This
is what's his name?
Proletarian.
Citizen Podhoretz.
Which is the same name as Norman and John Podhoretz.
I wasn't going to say.
Yeah.
А вы не брали этих вещей, потому что вы опомнились,
что
вы совершили преступление, или потому что это вещи вам не
подходили?
Нет, когда я опомнилась, если бы они мне не подходили, я бы их выбросила, но не понесла. А я уже опомнилась, думаю, ему уже нужно, и я понесла в вокзал опять их назад.
I mean, what's sad about this is that in a modern Western liberal court, you going all the way back to the sort of Victorian era, or actually even further back, there's a total universal lack of kind of immediate agency to it all. It's just you've committed a crime in the abstract against the law of the kingdom, if you're lucky, if it's a kind of traditional legal system, but then. When you look at the Soviet Union, it's this theological communism of you've committed a crime against socialism. You've committed a crime against your fellow proletariat. You've committed a crime against the people who are struggling with you to achieve socialism. I mean, obviously, it doesn't really work out like that. But there is something that she probably felt more genuine shame than she would if she'd been caught doing the same thing in, Burton-on-Trent, in the same circumstances.
And what you said, that's the reason why it's the party sitting in judgment. It's not just a judge of the state, exactly. It's the party.
Yes. That's it's like how as AA said, Stalin isn't the president or the prime minister or anything. He's secretary of the party. It's like there's this whole idea that you have all these different organs, but the party guides everything because it's that is the true expression of the people's will or something.
That's the bit of Labour I still like, the internal kind of, or is it the NEC? Is it the NEC or something?
It's like the ruling body of the party. That is like the Supreme Presidium or whatever. Right?
Yeah, they're still a bit like that in Labour, but unfortunately, even that's become managerialised now. And
HRified. We've come a long way from the days of Ernie Bevin, haven't we?
It's the NEC where you sometimes get like pretty wacky people. Like Eddie Izzard was on it, and like Tony Robinson was on it.
I think it's where all the wacky people are.
Tony Benn was on it for years, I think. And, but AA probably loves Tony Benn, right? Anyway.
Well, I mean, I kind of dig his basic aesthetics. I don't know if I agree
You've
with
got the socialist who lives in Holland Park, or lived in Holland Park.
I've never liked the idea of like be a socialist by all means, but if your name is the Honourable Sir Anthony Wedgwood Benn, 4th Baronet, then that's what you have to be. You have to, because like I think you can be a true aristocrat and be a socialist because they sort of lean into each other. It's it's the kind of modern expression of
noblesse oblige.
Noblesse oblige, right? But I don't see why you got to LARP as Tony Benn, as if he comes from some sort of council estate. Just go with what you are. Be true. Be true to your heritage.
I think until the mid to late 60s or something, he was called Wedgwood Ben or Anthony Wedgwood Ben, right?
Yeah.
And then he just started saying "Call me Tony" when in his 40s or 50s when he started getting into marketing.
He was referred to as a kid in the news when I remember as Anthony Wedgwood Ben.
Yeah.
Well, because I think for a lot of his life, you couldn't actually disclaim a peerage. There was no legal mechanism to get rid of it. And then they introduced
it was him who he changed it. He put
Blair, right?
So that he could abolish his one.
Yeah. Blair was famous for "Call me Tony," and that's why like Peter Hitchens will always call him by his full name,
Anthony Charles Linton.
Anthony Charles Linton. Blah, blah, blah. But was that a sly dig at Tony Benn? Was that like a kind of to get his own back on the left of the party or something? Call me Tony. It's a kind of wry comment on the previous "Call me Tony."
Yeah. You would never hear Peter Hitchens talking about Maggie, would you? He's got a bit more sense of decorum than to use the popular nicknames.
What does he call Boris Johnson? Does he call him by his
Alexander
Johnson?
Always calls him Alexander blah 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 Johnson. Where is he? Where's Hitchens? I haven't seen him for a while. So just get him out.
He's in one of his less dickhead phases, isn't he?
It's over.
He's still harping on the that nurse who went away and thought there was a mistrial. He's just I love the way he doggedly sticks to things like that when he gets a cause, which is really what that class is supposed to do.
He always sticks on Lucy Letby trial,
daylight saving,
the
beaching cups,
like anything to do with dope. He's got his hobby horses, hasn't he?
Marijuana,
terrorism, and marijuana. Same thing.
Yeah.
Наших странствий город Петушки. Кроме питья здесь, пожалуй,
one man's terrorist is another man's dope smoker.
Ходили утром, вставали. В одной деревне, если не было водки, шли в другую деревню. Если в этой нет, так шли в третью.
So that's a really interesting section. Just pause it briefly here, actually. This is from a 1990 documentary that Curtis is drawing from called Moscow Petushki. And it's about this really quite interesting writer called Venedikt Erofeev. And he's kind of like, he's almost like the Russian Withnail, really. He was a chronic alcoholic, but he is actually a pretty good writer. And he wrote this book, Moscow Petushki, which is about a drunk and his kind of journeys on the train from Moscow to this town, Petushki, where, he's going to visit his family, he's going to visit his young son. And it's a kind of reverie of poetic alcoholism. And it sort of talks a lot about the kind of reality of Soviet despair and how sort of entrenched alcoholism was. And one of the notable things about it is, apart from people calling it, they call it like an encyclopedia of the Russian soul. One of the funny things is he gives these recipes for these really desperate alcoholic drinks, like when you've got no actual proper booze. He invented a bunch of these cocktails with all these names, like the tear of a Komsomol girl, and the bitch's milk, the bitch's guts, the spirit of Geneva. And I'll just read you some of the recipes. The recipe for bitch's guts is 100 grams of Zhigolovskoye beer, 30 grams of Sadko shampoo, 70 grams of dandruff control solution, 15 grams of a certain kind of glue, 30 grams of brake fluid, 20 grams of insecticide. And he's got a whole bunch of these recipes. I mean, they use things like nail polish remover, anti-dandruff treatment, foot antiperspirant, methylated
Sorry, can I just say
spirits. Yeah.
Can I just say at this point, even the wankers on the street wouldn't drink that.
Yeah, he's totally. It's the most desperate stuff. And this particular documentary, again, I'll post this, Moscow Petrushka. It's actually really good. It's narrated by Bernard Hill, great actor, the one who plays Theoden in Lord of the Rings. And it's you see proper Russian alcoholics. And I mean, you got to remember this period. I mean, the average life expectancy for a man in Russia was about 56. So a couple of years older than me. It's gone up to about 68 now. But I mean, obviously, it is a chronic problem.
We've been talking about miners of the old ilk and old working men and so on. Bernard Hill was excellent at playing those sorts of men, wasn't he?
Yosser Hughes in Boys from the Black Star.
Yeah, exactly. Well, exactly. I mean, he was famous for that. Right? I mean, now he's only famous for Lord of the Rings, obviously, but he specialised in those roles. And
he's great.
Kind of he's actually the sort of person I think about when I think about those. He's one of the faces that comes to mind.
I mean, some of the recipes. It's like, here's one. He says, it's 2 a.m. You're stuck in a Siberian prison colony polishing shoes, and it's -50 outside. Time for a bottle brot or sandwich. Take a slice of bread and spread polish on it. Leave it outside. The bread will saturate with alcohol from the polish, and then you can scrape the polish off its top. To your health.
Oh god! But could you imagine how miserable it has to be? Because at that point, you're not even. It's not like you're going to get blitzed off that, is it? It's going to be like the tiniest drop.
They will drink anything. I mean, isn't it kind of like those? I don't know, Horace, you might know about this. Wasn't there sort of myths about the Germans at Stalingrad or something? They were kind of so reduced in supplies. People talked about them trying to like drink diesel or distill alcohol of diesel. I don't know. It was some sort of ridiculous kind of stuff. But anyway, eating the horses.
I've heard that in the siege of Leningrad, which is St. Petersburg, the Soviet people were reduced to making. Apparently, this is true. It's not even a joke. Reduced to making sausages out of sawdust and things like that.
Right.
Like just trying to eat things that weren't even food. Yeah.
I mean, the Russian High Command actually did notice during the war quite early on that all their frontline tank and truck units were using 3 times the required fuel that they were being given. And they sent a team round to work out why this was, and it was because people were siphoning off petrol and trying to drink it. And I think basically there was a meeting at the very top, including Stalin, where it was agreed that what they do, they figured that the average soldier would try and drink the petrol no matter how toxic they made it, no matter how horrific tasting they made it. So they just made it non-toxic. They just made it so you could. And I think to this day they use the same fuel recipe in Russian for Russian military vehicles. It's not good for you, but it won't kill you. But it won't feel very good either.
But
you can basically get because it's just ethanol, right? It's basically like drinking 100 proof alcohol.
Just this guy on screen, like obviously he described how far he took things, but like he looks, I don't know what, in his 20s probably, and he's quaffing neat vodka. Like Jesus,
he's the lucky one. He gets actual vodka.
If I did that for 2 seconds, drinking vodka like that, I'd be pissed immediately. Like, I'd be gone. Oh my god!
I'm sure Russian vodka could also be pretty dodgy as well. But Petushki is where I think the distillery is based that Stolichnaya is issued from, and they make something like 8 million bottles a year. I mean, that was back then. I think back in the 90s, so it's more now.
I've drunk a few bottles of Stolichnaya, but not like that.
No.
Yeah, I can't drink it neat.
As well. Sorry, is Stolichnaya the correct? I said Stolichnaya. That's
Stolichnaya. As far as I know.
Okay, I anglified it.
Which is quite hard to get here now, ever since the war. they've cracked down on proper Russian export vodka quite a lot.
I always remember there was some bit in a James Bond novel where he talked about they used to do dodgy distilling in Russia. So he puts pepper on his vodka because it takes down some sort of fusel oil or something that they used in the process of distillation and purifies the vodka. But that's after the war where...
To be honest, I think, I think probably the Russians could be trusted to just make the purest, most factory, bog standard vodka of all, really. I mean, that's where the process of the making what we now know as vodka was mastered to a fine art under the Tsars, because it earned them a huge amount of tax revenue.
I've told you guys my story of going to Iran circa 2002, 2003, where famously an Islamic theocracy, so gambling is banned and drinking is banned. Then I spent nothing but 3 weeks gambling and drinking. Gambling with pictures of the original Ayatollah on the money, but the drinks they would bring out were obviously illegal imports from Russia, and they were cans of vodka, neat vodka.
Wow.
Cans, and the picture of the can had a nudie lady on it. So if you can imagine, I was sitting around smoking opium, gambling with the Ayatollah's face,
mullahs,
right? Drinking cans of neat vodka with nudie ladies on it. It was just like, holy shit! I mean, and this is the funny thing about Iranians. They don't just go for it; they fucking go for it. And I was like, holy shit! I've never been more hammered, high. It's just mental. That whole trip was mental.
This is under the most terrifying Islamic theocracy in the world.
Oh, they just and then it's like, right now it's time for the girls to come out and dance. I was like, what? What the fuck? What is going on here?
There you go. That's dissidence.
Temptation around every corner in that country.
Well,
at least it was like that in 2002. So
anyone I've met a couple of Iranians and some people who've been to Iran. I've read a few articles of journalists on the lowdown going to a part. Everyone seems to agree that Iran, under the sort of obvious control of the regime, there is just an underworld and it's quite open and it's quite well known about, and it's not that surreptitious, and it's just an underground party world and stuff, and people just living it up and living like they're not under a tyranny.
I would say that it kind of backfired in their case. The more they pushed, the more like that people went in a paradoxical. This is why I've always said that, I know people got this thing, and Carlyle likes Cromwell and so on, but the actual effect of Cromwell is that it pushed the country the other way. Cromwell ended up bringing back the king who loved partying, and the laissez-faire people.
Less fervently religious, the constant imposition of religious seriousness.
Well, it's just a fucking pain in the ass, So in the end, people just rebel.
This is the problem with the hard exercise of power. This is what you've got to always be watching.
Yeah, so that is, that's also something to think about.
Ironically, a libertarian may be the best ruler because they'll largely, maybe the most stable ruler, the most lasting, because they will allow the large amount of freedom that most people seem to gravitate towards, but without.
Don't listen, comrades.
Yeah, Horus would give you the illusion of freedom.
There is something. Think about it though. Look at the 90s we grew up in, Horus. How bloody hedonistic it was, and how. And then do you remember when straight edge became a thing? And then compare now some of the kids now versus when we were 20, say, and they're boring. They're boring. They don't have sex. They don't drink.
A bit Puritan.
They're a little bit, So and that hasn't been by state force. That's been by because everything's available, so everything seems boring.
Where did you hear? I don't hear people mention straight edge much, but was that where did you
that was
hear
a thing 2010 sort of time?
I mean, to be honest, that started really in the early 80s. I remember it because I remember Oren McIntyre. He likes this band called Stryper, heavy metal band. I remember my friend telling me about this in 1983, I think it was 1983 or 94, about this this thing of these straight edge bands. It was actually a thing back then.
They're also preachy Christians. Like their song titles are like psalms and stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
I make no judgment. I'm just saying it's a thing that's there.
Okay, that
people might like it.
I was going to ask you, what do you associate straight edge with? Because for me, it was hardcore punks, and that was a particular subgenre of punk in the 2000s genre.
In the context of heavy metal, my friend liked, Iron Maiden and stuff, and he told me, he said, "Oh, there's this Christian band called Stryper. Aren't they sad?" kind of thing.
Yeah, they're famously like outside the metal scene because they're too religious and stuff. Yeah.
Not being cool enough to be into metal, I associate straight edge with the wrestler CM Punk, who was a big deal about 15 years ago, and his whole deal was he was straight edge. He didn't drink, he didn't do drugs, and I think at one point he turned heel, being more like puritanical. Like I think he was a vegetarian, and so you can imagine that rubbing a wrestling crowd the wrong way. But that was how I knew about straight edge. But I like wrestling's always late. Wrestling's always like at the tail. Once it reaches wrestling, the thing is dead. It's like a lagging indicator in the culture. So
I vaguely knew, like in where I'm from, there was just a very thriving alternative scene. Alternative meaning anything from like indie rock to metal to everything sort of to the left, as it were, musically of the mainstream, in a way. And among that, there was the punk contingent, and punks could be just like Larry type people who like just pranks, like sort of jackass sort of people. Or it could be these really serious, somewhat politicized, they're into like, obviously like Black Flag and Bad Religion was that band. And, like the sort of the political side of punk and, Crass and stuff like that as well. And, very politicized. And they were like Antifa types, not masked up and not like, on the rampage, but they had the same ethics. They were, and like strictly vegan, strictly no leather and all that, and and like strictly anti-racist and stuff. And it was they were joyless, and their music was boring as well. Like they were Puritans, they were weird.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Somebody in the chat was saying that they remember straight edge from 2005. CM Punk was about 2011, 2012. So what was that? 7 years later. That makes that's about right for wrestling, because if you remember in like 1995, all the men had mullets and were like doing hair metal, which was obviously like from the late 80s or whatever. So they're always about 7-8 years behind. So that sounds about right.
That's so lagging.
Yeah, very. I mean, it's a little bit like Wales. Wales is about 7 years. Like stuff hits Wales 7 years after it hits London, or at least it used to when we were kids. So.
Yeah. Well, it is. I mean, this is.
I saw people still have mullets in France in the 90s and Germany as well. Sorry, go on.
And the entire country of Poland as well. Anyway, go on, Hart. Go on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're actually right about Wales like that. I mean, bear in mind, bear in mind when I was born, I remember when we only still had like 4 channels. Wales was just somehow still like that. You always felt cheated because one of them was S4C. So you felt like you only really had 3.
Oh, S4C was a pain as well. Like if you wanted to watch Friends or something, you'd have to wait up until midnight, or you just couldn't. Oh, it was a pain. It was.
You were already living a kind of samizdat existence in Wales, weren't you? Sort of underground.
We were
circulating tapes of English Channel 4. Like,
it was the worst. It was the worst for that particular era, because I had all these friends who had this is the whole Rishi Sunak thing, right? But I had friends who had Sky, where millions of channels, all the kids channels, all the cartoons, and I used to have to come home and watch The Weakest Link because it was what was on.
Incidentally, I just noticed this week I watched a Navarra stream, and then Ash Sarkar also came up on LBC, I think last night, and she's currently pushing a line of talking about nationalism and talking about how Scottish and Welsh nationalism they're making some real progress there because it's an inclusive nationalism, unlike the horrible English nationalism, which is tinged with all kinds of dark racist stuff. So she's kind of trying to sort of put a wedge into the discourse of the idea of British nationalisms at the moment.
Dreadful.
Well, she's always been like, I mean, what do you expect from Ash Sakar?
How much does she make per year just out of appearances like that? How many tens of grand a year just for that, just for being some mong with idiot opinions?
They're doing well, Navarra. They're moving to a great big new place in Dalston, so got a bit more money coming in.
Where'd their money come from in the first place? How'd they get all their connections in the first place?
Who knows?
Resolution FM put them up. Weird.
Let's not attack Comrade Bastani. Come on.
Yes.
I am attacking Comrade Bastani, fucking commie.
Support for the Workers' Party of Dalston.
I remember I told you before, I was into Novara way before it was cool, before anyone had heard of it. Like, I had a commie friend who mentioned it once. And I was watching, I think it was on YouTube, 2015, I think it was, the election that was coming up. Aaron Bastani said that Labour should have a policy of mandatory closed shops across all industries. That means mandatory trade union membership. But you can't have a job unless you join one union for that whole industry, usually. That's like proper, I mean, that's borderline. I mean, you might as well just start imposing a communist state. He hasn't departed far from that. I know he's like Christian now or whatever, and a dad.
I always think with Navarra, there's the sort of three main ones. There's Aaron Bastani, Ash Sarkar, and there's that guy Michael Walker, who's the one with the sort of shaven head and the glasses. And I always think maybe he's going to end up like a kind of Trotsky figure being murdered by the other two or something. Just a vague thought that flits across my head.
He's more kind of Gary economics, that one, isn't he?
Yeah.
They were part of how Gary's economics got going as well. Yeah, Michael Walker's the most sort of likable person maybe on there, but he is to the right of them. He says he's just a social democrat, whereas it started off as a communist thing.
Yeah. The rest of the presenters all feel a bit kind of irascible.
I think I'm in leftist bad books at the moment because when I did my roundup of the local council elections and Starnbot and so on, I said that the Green vote didn't materialize. And then yesterday I said on our office hours, look, if you're looking for the youth vote, the left have been looking for that for 80 years and they still haven't learned that you can't count on the youth. And I went on that whole rant. And there's a few dedicated lefties who watch the channel who've been, being like, oh, your facts are wrong, or oh, look, the Greens have got this much of the under 50s vote and all this, you're in denial. And I was like, no, it's just value-free analysis. I've seen it all before. Youth quake, schmooth quake. It never works. If you count on youth, you always fail. That's a guarantee. One of political lesson you can take to the grave with you. If you're counting on youth, you've lost already in this country. Anyway.
My local council is Havering, like London Borough of Havering. And the Greens, where I am anyway, this part of Havering, they flooded us with leaflets, probably door knockers. They can't knock on my door, but like there was their own newspaper. They were all over online. I've never seen so much debate, local politics debate, for the 2 months before the election, and they won 0 seats. I don't think they even came close. It was just a complete sweep of reform. Like there is no Green constituency in most places. They're nothing in most places.
It didn't materialize, and they haven't. They're sticking with the script that they set up before the elections actually happened. The fact is, the vote didn't materialize, which means that Starnbot is not as weak as he looks. Right, the left are making all these moves on a pre-written script, but actually Starnbot is stronger than he looks, which is why he's not budging. That's why his actual competition comes from Wes Streeting and the Blairites, who want to take the party further to the right. So anyway, leftists don't like realism, it turns out. But there we are. Well, who'd have thought, eh? But anyway, let's carry on. Neither do rightists. Nobody likes realism.
No.
Nobody likes realism, Simon.
I do.
Copium is the drug of the moment.
I'm all about realism.
Good. At least I got you, Horace.
Just before this clip goes on, this is a friend of Kurokin's called Kolya. He's said to be Russia's #1 Beatles fan, and yeah, it's all this thing of American culture getting in there at this time.
I like the cat. It looks like a sweet cat.
Yeah, keeps it in a bag.
Record.
From the early ones.
Is it the '84 album? It's like the second Beatles album.
Don't know.
God, I can't. I'm not very good with the early Beatles. I tend to favour stuff after Help, basically. Help onwards.
Someone's saying from Help in the chat.
It is from Help. Well, there we are. Okay, there we are. All right. Sounds about right. Can I just, while we're on the subject of the Beatles, I am now convinced that there was a psyop on the Boomers to get them to hate Paul and to like John and George, because all of the opinions that you've got in the magazines were like anti-Paul, subtly anti-Paul, a lot of subtle anti-Paulness in the media, and like, oh, John's the cool one. You've got to like John. Oh, George, George's solo stuff. George was held down and all this sort of stuff. Like, what? Paul was the genius in the group. Paul, it's obvious. It's obviously Paul.
This is Apollonian Paul versus Dionysian John and George, essentially, isn't it?
I just think he was clearly the genius in the group.
He's the reason and the order and the balance and the calmness.
I just don't know why there's so much anti-Paul animus in the world in general. Why isn't he like? He should be lauded as an almost like quasi-god or something.
I think it's because Paul always leans more towards that kind of Kinks, bonzo-y area of English music, whereas John Lennon is just the pure boomer slop, hippie, freedom of expression, blah blah blah. That's why.
Imagine.
I remember there was a study done showing that there's as many ideas in the average McCartney song as there is in like Mozart and Beethoven. That he's like McCartney genuinely is a kind of musical genius. I wish I could remember that study now.
Someone in the chat saying Simon makes his living traveling around Britain, hustling pub quizzes. I did actually used to do that in London. I used to go out because there was a place called the Prince Regent near me in Brixton, and they would have a quiz night and people would chuck in money, and I'd regularly go along and be a table of one and like clear off like 60 quid or something.
Would you win? Would you win the quiz?
Yeah. It was just money, and there was
Simon,
a few pubs.
I used to love going. I was part of a pub quiz team.
Yeah,
we should do it. We would absolutely dominate the four of us.
Totally clear up.
We would clear out any pub.
The only things I didn't get was sports questions, obviously, but I used to get.
I could do the sport as long as it's like 20 years old.
And there'd always be a round of like car badges, like which badge is this particular car?
We could be so good.
Yeah,
team. We could even call ourselves the Deep Four.
I know the Mercedes.
I should go and do it now. Actually, I need to
literally call ourselves reviewing Adam Curtis.
Why don't we just do this like next week? Why don't we just go to some big?
Just do it all the time.
Find a pub quiz in London. Yeah.
I guarantee what'll happen is we'll have a couple of successful nights. We'll go in somewhere to an established pub quiz, and there'll be another team of absolute autists who are as good as we are.
This was the problem, Hat, because me and my old physics PhD mates, we had a great team, and we were very good, and we dominate. Then this other team came along called Engelbert and the Humperdinks.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, they were so good. And the guy from Engelbert and the Humperdinks looked exactly, and I mean exactly, like Newman from Seinfeld. If you ever seen that show, Newman, yeah, right? So anyway, he had that look where they'd get something, they'd win by 1 point, and he'd look over with his Newman face, and we'd be like, again, Engelbert. Yeah. And we'd see him on the train and see him out and about, and he was always so smug about it. Oh, they were so good. It was so annoying.
I once had it kind of haunts me because it was such a Newman-esque moment, kind of like that, you know, where it was in this big pub quiz, and the question went up, you know, who was the captain of the HMS Victory? And I knew immediately what was going to happen here, because I thought to myself, well, the captain of the HMS Victory was Captain Hardy, right? I know the clearly they mean they're talking about Nelson, but I thought, I know what this is going to be. I know exactly, and of course, lo and behold, 10 minutes later we got to the answers, and I had to do it. And every single other person had put Nelson, and I said, I just sort of stand up and just sort of this horrible self-awareness of, I'm sort of proud that I know it, but also just the shame of being this person.
I had that, I had that thing of being the smart ass who actually knows, or sometimes there's more than one correct answer. We should. I want to play a team of Navarra. I want to play those three.
We would rinse Sakar and co.
Ash Sakar, come on, she's not going to have, you know, esoteric traditional.
She doesn't even count. Knowledge. She'll just be giggly, and
we'll smash the idea that the right wingers are thick.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
Although not that any of us are right wing. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But we're all sensible centrists here, apart from deviationist Horus.
Exactly. Third world is Pan-Africanism for me, comrade.
I've just realised it's 5 o'clock. Shit.
We need to foreclose.
We've been chatting. Well, okay. Remember, we're 16 minutes in. Lord knows what's happened. Lord knows what's happened.
I thought it was all going to be so different with this.
We'll just let it play. Let it play.
Oh, it was basically like being at the pub with some Russian stuff in the background, wasn't it?
Yeah, there's quite a lot in it. I will say. So I'll post the links to the various things.
I mean, there is some talking in it. I didn't realise there is some people. Sometimes, you sort of got to listen. Sort of.
I've just seen something on Twitter, by the way, that we have to watch.
I'm particularly getting tips from her on how to win friends. This is from the person, Mr. Speaker, who previously called us orcs and goons. But, Mr. Speaker, I am a gooner, and so... called us orcs and goons. But, Mr. Speaker, I am a gooner, and so, as usual, she is less than half right.
There's three meanings there, right? He's an Arsenal fan, the gunner.
Yeah, he's saying
that's what he means. That's what he means. Which is obviously bullet.
It could also mean what? That he's a gonner. Is that what you laugh at? Or that he's a sweet
wanker. Summer child Horus. Surely you know.
Or that he's a wanker. That's the other one, right?
Yeah.
And I think that Kemi. I think that the issue here is that Kemi Badenoch is a little bit younger and a little bit down with the kids. So she knows what Guna means, and Keir Starmer clearly does not. That's what's going. Have a look. Have a look in the clip.
I'm particularly getting tips from her on how to win friends. This is from the person, Mr. Speaker, who previously called us orcs and goons. But, Mr. Speaker, I am a gooner, and so, as usual, she is less than half right.
So there we are. So.
But
there we go. You'd never know that he's just like being, had an entire week of people trying to do him in. He carries on making world-class memes.
But then this is also just the case a lot of the time where the outside media, furious Keir Starmer slams Wes Streeting. This kind of, if you actually look at them on their, even their most heated kind of day-to-day moments, it's nothing like that. There's that infamous clip of Starmer and Farage like shaking hands, having a friendly chat as they go out of the House of Commons together. It's all kayfabe. It's all kayfabe.
Blue Wizrobe says, I noticed that the GOP has been pushing through house redistricting. Do you think the regime is trying to fortify the midterms to prevent Trump from being impeached and removed from office? Probably that's what the GOP are up to. Yeah, I'm sure of it. Realpolitik says Wii was the same hardware as the GameCube. It plays GameCube games. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I've heard it said as a piece of trivia, though I don't quite know how that sort of scales.
I'd have thought the Wii was better than that because it was the next generation on, wasn't it? So
Well, presumably it's the same tech with the added motion control stuff that they because that was what really made the Wii, wasn't it? It was sort of intuitive in a way that normal video games weren't, which is why they appeal to women more, I suppose, because you didn't have to learn some sort of strange physical process to actually operate the thing.
Look up the interview with a 19-year-old Warwickshire County Council leader. Tell me that the first two words that don't come into your head are not David Brent. Oh my God, how am I going to find that?
They're desperate for slop. They're desperate for slop. Go and laugh at the deformed Labour MPs.
How am I going to find that?
This young 18, 19-year-old guy, isn't it?
Warwickshire County Council. I'll just put that in. Warwickshire County Council. I'm assuming there's some clip that's going around. Here we are. Is it the Reform leader? Yeah, there we are. Let's have a little watch. He already looks like he could be an apprentice candidate or something. Isn't he?
We don't want that flag up because it doesn't represent everybody in Warwickshire. The three flags that do are the St. George's flag, the Union flag, and the county flag. So I emailed the chief executive asking her to remove the pride flag, and didn't want to do it. You sometimes have to butt heads. When you start up a new business, company takes over another, there's a merger, or new administration comes in, you have to take charge. And actually, the decisions I've made have not been for me, but have been for the wider public. And that is to look through everything with a fine-tooth comb. That is not to just move a few chairs around or redecorate. Our goal is to change the entire foundations of this council and make monumental change.
I get where he's coming from, but he didn't come across that badly to me. I thought he came across all right. He reminded me a little bit of a young William Regal or Lord Stephen Regal, because he's got.
I was going to say there's something sportsy or wrestling about him.
Well, he's got the same accent as William Regal. Kind of posh.
Cost cutter manager vibes. Somebody says in the chat.
Well, the problem is, again, it's sort of like, you think back to those pre-COVID days of yearning for a release from the kind of woke regime, and it's like, is that really that much worse than this? Being ruled by dinos and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
AJ says Simon Marks is itching to report from Iran. Oh, Simon Marks, that's that's the guy, the LBC guy.
Yeah.
Interesting you say that, James. It's Simon Marks. No, I'm not. Grim from the Red Hood says Gen Z is just a brain-rotted and poorer repeat of Gen X. I don't really know what that means.
No. And also, I don't think it's really true either, because like every generation before young Gen Z were, real people because they grew up in, a relatively normal world. Whereas younger Gen Z are just, social, like phone zombies, basically.
But most Zoomers are just retarded, in my view.
Yeah.
Just, curiously know like one or two things really well, but then are just like properly stupid.
Poor Gen Z. I have high hopes for them.
Whereas Gen X are all highly individualistic, but
self-deluding.
And I'm an individual because I like Pink Floyd. So,
totally.
But at the same time, I can kind of get on with them. I can get on with Zoomers too, but I also there'll always be a moment where I'll just mention something to Zoomer and they'll just have that blank face. The blank face. It's like, what have I said? What have I mentioned? And they'll literally be something like, I mentioned Bruce Forsyth or, some like obvious normal cultural touchstone, and they just
Paolo
have
Maldini.
what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Or Paolo Maldini or whoever, whoever, any, and it's because they just have no shared reference points at all, so it makes things hard. But to me, the millennials were worse. Speaking as the Xennial, the God's chosen, there's a certain type of millennial, the younger millennial, who were just uber. They had that Harry Potter morality. Everything was black and white. Everything was, if you weren't, on the right side of this issue or that issue, you were evil or whatever. I didn't like that. I didn't like that generation. I found them brittle in some odd way, and it was very noticeable when I was teaching them, because Shakespeare is all about shades of grey, as you know, Simon, and all about ambiguity and so on, and they just couldn't handle it. They couldn't. Who's the hero? Who's the villain? Who do we root for? It's like, well, Shakespeare's not really like that.
Gen X are defined by being know-it-alls, says Marbly Man in the chat. And recently this week, someone was talking about this character in the American version of The Office called Bob California. And I think, he exemplifies a bit of that kind of thing. Insufferable kind of person.
Who are the Gen Xers that we know? Let's have a look. Simon, Mr. D, Thomas 777, Semiagog, all of them individuals to a man and know-it-alls to a man. That's correct. You're correct.
And all broken by life as well.
Is it Radlib a Gen Xer though?
Joe Radlib, he is.
Yeah.
He is also.
And he's the opposite of what you're saying.
He is also a bit of a know-it-all as well, though. He does it in a nice way. He does it in a nice way, but he does know a lot of stuff.
Seamless, yeah.
The thing is, to be a know-it-all, you do need to know a lot of stuff as well, though. So
it's only relative, though, like you say. There's just things. I will say there's one thing that Gen X friends of mine who watch Lotus Eaters, for example, and the name of a politician or something will come up, and people will sort of say who, and you think, oh, I thought everybody know that. You always think culture permeates further than it does, or politics or current events, but people just don't know. Oh, who's that? Diane Abbott? Who's that? Or whatever. I mean, eventually over time, people pick things up, but sometimes it's like, oh, how can you not know who that person is?
You throw out a reference like Lembit Opik and the Cheeky Girls. Nobody can remember that anymore.
It's not to be sneering. It's just strange how things are forgotten so quickly.
Have you guys watched Bo's breakfast show on Lotus Eaters? Because it takes it to another level. Because Bo does the headlines on his breakfast show, and for some reason, regular as clockwork, it seems. I think the Sun is the worst for this, but the other red tops as well. They do headlines based on punning on totally the most boomer references. It ain't half hot, mum was the other day. There's some pun on that. Are you fucking kidding me? That when my parents were young, that was on TV.
That's a 70s show. It hasn't really been because of its racism. It hasn't really been re-shown either.
But obviously, Bo being, I think, Zennial as well, his references are too old for some of the Zoomers who work at or watch Lotus Eaters, which is funny. Bo's like a boomer to them, because some Zoomers use boomer to mean everyone who's 20.
But this is one of those things that irritates me slightly as a Zennial, as God's chosen. My mindset was always, if I'd missed something, I want to try to fill the gap. Right, so I don't like the idea that I've got that gap. So I wasn't born yet was not an excuse. Right, I mean, let's say The Godfather coming out in 1972, Horace. That is not an excuse for having not seen it, or Citizen Kane, or whatever. Right, the date is neither here nor there. It's important, so it's a gap to fill. Whereas that attitude just simply does not exist among the Zoomer for some reason. They experience all of time as a kind of, I don't know. I sometimes even wonder if they have a sense of diachronic time and synchronic time.
Well, presentism to the worst version of presentism.
Mr. D used to talk about the problem of Zoomers and sort of the generation just one before, knowing things but only through references. So it's like you've never actually seen Citizen Kane, but you know vaguely what it is, and you've seen a Simpsons episode that parodies the plot of it.
Yeah,
so it's like you've never seen it, but you can sort of just guess your way through. You can sort of pretend that you've seen it. I mean that in itself is the whole thing. This idea of just you just knowing it via references to other things, secondhand.
You do know that it's something people mention with reverence, or perhaps at one remove.
Yeah.
Like you do know that it's something that someone else has mentioned that other people regard with reverence.
But then, and I know all the rest of you on here will sympathize with this, is if you growing up and you're not into things like awful pop music or football that just get talked about ad nauseum, you do develop a kind of mental mechanism of being able to sort of understand it by rote of not knowing anything about it. You're just picking up the chatter. It's did you see that ludicrous display last night? Right, you just learn to do that.
For about 10 years, you could probably get away with Wenger's really struggled to replace Patrick Vieira, hasn't he? You could get away with that for literally a decade of football chat was just that. So, anyway, Seamus. Oh, speaking of football, by the way, I said in August 2025, I want a big comeback for Jose Mourinho. And last night, Mourinho is on the final stages of coming back as the manager of Real Madrid. I control the universe with my mind in funny and unexpected ways. That is like when I put that out, I didn't actually expect him to make a big comeback so quickly, but the special one is back, and I'm excited. I might even start watching football again just to see the antics of Jose, because he is one of the great characters. Even if you're not into football, watch his interviews and stuff. They're a lot of fun. He's so arrogant, and
who's he managing now?
Well, he's currently at Benfica, but he's apparently about to sign with Real Madrid. He's in his final stages of coming back to Real. So I'm just it's kind of quite exciting about that.
He's a fucking twat. I'll say that. Anyway,
what is it? You mean? But he's a pro wrestling heel, is what he is, in the most glorious possible way. You just rub, and it doesn't matter how many times people will fall for it every time, and he will rub everybody up the wrong way, get himself into fights.
He fell out with Iker Casillas, who was the best goalie I'd ever seen at the time. I could not understand that.
And Casillas has been bad mouthing him. He says, I don't want Mourinho back at Real Madrid.
Okay, good.
Yeah, he's not the best. Sir Alex is the number one ever. I maintain that even non-football fans can learn stuff from Alex Ferguson on things like the importance of character and various other things like good values and things like that. But anyway, Seamus O'Blaine says, is Morcar an Iranian magus? Morcar is not Iranian. Morcar has got white hair and it is a white Caucasian wizard. So he's not Iranian.
Indo-Aryan, maybe.
He's I don't know if it's. I mean, he's certainly a human in terms of his his
indeterminate ethnicity.
He's not an orc or a goon.
He's not an orc or an elf. But yeah. And then finally, no, I'm not grim for the Red Hood says, AA, the West is cooked. Please do the truffle shuffle. What's the truffle shuffle when it's at home?
I feel old.
That's from the Goonies.
That's a Goonies joke. Yeah. Come on, know it all Gen Xers.
Yeah, that's the one film I never saw. I never saw the Goonies.
Classic one. Never seen the Goonies.
I can't get my head back to Goonies.
I stopped with Spielbergian sentimentalism after watching E.T. because they took us to it at school and all the girls cried, and I thought I can't be doing this shit.
No, Simon, you're right, and don't bother with the Goonies. It's not.
Thank you.
No, it's rubbish.
I'm backed up in my narrow-mindedness by people who know better.
Come on, you got to know it. See, we'd have missed that. We'd have missed that on the pub quiz if it wasn't for me and Doris.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember the Goonies, but I don't remember it that. It wasn't one I watched lots. I watched it like once or twice.
No, that's crap.
I mainly remember that kind of ugly guy. You know, he's like the ugly oaf guy they make friends with.
Yeah,
forget his name now. And
there's the main reason I didn't like it.
There's a little Chinese boy, and
he's annoying. Yeah, that ogre thing, that was the main, that, and the way that was like sort of the sympathetic character. I was like, fuck off. I didn't have any like right wing beliefs or anything, but I was like, I still just hated it. I was like,
was the little Chinese boy in the Goonies, or he may have been Japanese, I think he was Chinese. Was it the same as Shorty Round from Indiana Jones? Was it the same actor?
Yeah, I think yeah,
probably.
Yeah,
because he was around. That actor was kind of big for a while as a kid.
Ke Huy Quan, or Jonathan Ke Quan.
Speak English, mate.
His name.
I don't know. Was it the same boy? I'm going to look up the Goonies.
Yeah, he's short round. Yeah, and Data in the Goonies. Yeah.
Yeah,
same.
He didn't play Mr. Miyagi as well. That was someone else.
Ridiculous.
That would have been impressive.
Yeah,
it's makeup.
What a career he's had. He's actually Vietnamese.
Time magazine named him one of the 100 most influential people in the world in 2023.
It's 2023.
What was he doing in 2023?
Yeah.
I don't know. The word world is doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Does he own like an AI company or something?
What was that? What was that film which was always on the TV where it's like the Jewel of the Nile?
Oh yeah, Michael Douglas and Kathleen. What's her name?
He wasn't in that. It feels like he would have been in that as well, but he was in a film called It Takes a Thief. He was in Kung Fu Panda 4 and Zootopia 2.
Kathleen Turner.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
It's the same series as Romancing the Stone, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it.
Why did he win one of the most? Looking at his CV, he did nothing in 2003 of any note whatsoever. So, what was he just coasting off Goonies and Indiana Jones fame?
He was short round. That's why he's one of the most influential people in the world.
Yeah, but he was short round 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's what I mean. How does that make you even at the time? How does that make you more influential than I don't know, Xi Jinping or
he was the first Vietnamese actor to win an Academy Award. So he's
maybe he's maybe he's really big in
work
Vietnam.
at the US Embassy or something in Saigon there to flee, and that's how he got to the US. I bet there's some refugee story.
I would suggest that award by Time Magazine in 2023 was diversity bullshit, because he has done nothing to deserve that at all.
Well, there's lots of most influential people lists, and you think, no, that's just ridiculous. You deserve
just
nothing.
Shagging one of the women who wrote the list, basically. It's just someone's boyfriend. Or
let us pass on from Ke Huy Quan.
Yeah, 2023 is 40 years after he was Shorty Round. 40 years after he was Shorty Round.
Yeah.
And the geeky kid in Goonies. Oh yeah, having an award, mate.
You're rather lightly brushing over Kung Fu Panda 4.
Yeah, okay. He's not winning it for Kung Fu Panda 4, is he? Anyway, guys,
maybe he's really big in Vietnam. Maybe it's one of these things where
like a Jackie
someone
Chan
isn't
thing.
big in the West. Yeah. Huge in random country or something.
He's an inspiration and a role model.
Yeah.
Or maybe we just ignored the reviews for Kung Fu Panda 4. It actually was.
I've got a funny feeling it may be for something television related, because I'm looking now. He's done. Because do you remember, like, TV is bigger than film now in a weird way, and
big series.
In 2023,
American-born
Chinese. He was in a show called Loki, which is some Marvel slop. And I'm guessing it was for Loki that he won it, not for being Shorty Round.
Loki, like the god Loki, like. Okay.
Yeah, and he was like one of the main characters in Loki. Shorty
Not
Round.
Loki, that Egyptian guy who talks about left-wing politics and stuff.
No.
It was. Look, I'll show you a screenshot.
It's not a film.
I mean, I don't watch TV anymore, but
that Vietnamese kid playing Loki.
The Tom Hiddleston character from the Marvel.
So, and this makes him among the 50 most influential people on the planet.
100.
Well, I'm guessing it was a big show. It was a big show.
Those films will literally be made by AI soon. Like within
Season
a few years,
2.
There's no need to have any humans.
I've never watched any of these films.
Look, there's Owen.
Formula. It's just
He
pure
was big
formula.
for a while, wasn't he? Owen Wilson.
He was a funny guy.
Right, I'm going to go season 2, Shorty Round. I forgot his name already.
Hang on.
There he is. Look. There he is. One of the most influential men in the world.
In the world.
There he is. So
I bet George Soros wasn't on the list, but he was, right?
Someone here saying Garth Marenghi was huge in Peru. Is that true? Is that true?
Yeah,
I'd really like that.
Writer, dreamweaver, plus actor. Yeah.
Or no writers who use subtext, and they're all cowards. Yeah.
They sent us Paddington, and we sent them Garth Marenghi.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Only Fools and Horses is religious levels of revered in former Yugoslav countries, because it was the only major British show to get airtime there, and it was on repeat constantly. And people in Yugoslavia used to look up to the Trotters as this great status symbol of Western luxury. They used to, it was this. I'm amazed this doesn't show up in any Curtis doc actually, but there's all these buildings to this day in places like Croatia and Serbia with just murals of Del Boy and Rodney and Grandad and Uncle Albert all over the wall. I mean, like huge, like religious icon style pictures. I'm not joking. Because they were seen as these, underdog heroes who subverted a system that was rigged against them. It was a colossal.
Well, I had something about this in my little spiel at the beginning about the way Curtis is telling a story of us by using someone else, and the way Shakespeare did that, and it's the kind of, with British stuff, it's like Basil Fawlty or Steptoe or Del Boy. It's all about these people who emblematize things about us, but we suppress them and we let them out in these TV shows where they experience failure and humiliation and all these kinds of things that we are terrified of.
Do you remember? Do you remember Stuart Lee's somewhat hateful somewhat hateful
Del Boy falls through the bar.
Del Boy falls through the bar routine.
He fell through the bar, Stu. He fell through the bar, Stu. I mean, to be fair though, the whole sort of UK gold comedy top 5 thing every year, and the number one is always
British history.
Del Boy falling through the bar. And to be fair, to break out from the Stuart Lee mold of coldness and irony, if you actually watch the whole episode, it is a brilliantly well set up fall. It's not just that he falls through a bar, and the whole, because basically it's the whole show is kind of summed up by that. It's a guy who thinks he can strike out against the universe, and the universe reminding him where his place is. There is a cosmic element to it. But anyway, probably intellectualizing it too much.
Stuart Lee knows that as well. He's probably watched it and laughed, but you know what he's like. Okay, all right, guys. We have to get out of here. Give me a call about the pub quiz. I'll see what I can do. All right.
I'd love to do that.
Bye, everyone. Pick up a course. Promo code COOL. Subscribe to Horus on Substack. Go and watch
my documentary next Friday.
Documentary of Simon next Friday, and follow Hat on Twitter.
What goes on in this town is none of your business.
As long as I'm living here, it is.
Then maybe you shouldn't be living here!
Well, that's easily fixed.